anything, my stuff's not pulling up.
I took a minute from mine too.
Mine go on with all of the order and call the stuff in.
Randy.
It's 6:30 p.m. We will go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome everybody to the regular May 17th meeting. And at this time, we ask that everyone stand for a moment of silence and followed by the pledge. And we ask that you all keep our neighbors in Montgomery County in your thoughts and prayers as they're going through some things over there right now with some of their students. Pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1 is review of the agenda, followed by item number 2, adoption of the agenda. There's a couple of things. If we could, I've now got the results from the screening committee. They were able to tally, Justin was able to tally the results and get all that worked out between last night and tonight. So if we could make that 14A, I can give those results tonight. Thanks. And then also, if you all would be open to having a work session sometime in the very near future, if we could add that and discuss that. Put that under,
Is that 15 or?
well, it would have to be 14B or 4, 15.
14B.
Yeah, is that okay? That's all I've got.
How do you want to state that 14A and 14B?
I've just got it as screening committee results.
That would be for certified and classified teachers, right?
And your parent PTO. I think, is that all it is, Justin, is it parent certified and classified, yes.
And 14B would be work session discussion.
Meeting, work session meeting, schedule meeting. Anybody else have anything else they wanted to add, or?
Yeah, and I don't know if we can discuss this or not, or if we have, or if we have the right people here tonight, but I think we need to discuss if we're going to entertain virtual education or virtual schooling in fall. You know, if they're playing, if it's a no, yes, what are we gonna do? Does
I
it-
didn't discuss and get some groundwork on it.
Yeah,
Can we put that on the work session?
meeting?
Well, if we, I mean, I guess we could discuss and see if it's even something we want to entertain, and then if we do, then add to the work session. Kind of
Yeah.
see where we're gonna go with it.
Just a discussion on it tonight.
Yeah, we don't have to move on it. I mean,
I wonder if it would be helpful to get a survey out to see how many want to.
that's why, I think that's why he's wanting to add it, to see if that's kind of what we want to do, to have that discussion. So is that
Or if
okay?
we- Or even if we have the resources to do it too.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I mean,
You got ladies right there.
oh, I'm sorry.
know how to conduct meetings, I'm sorry, I'm a paramedic, so
Oh,
I'm
no.
not used to school board meetings. But I came tonight as a parent on behalf of my daughter. She will be a senior this coming fall. She cannot attend in person due to her father's health. We cannot take the risk of her contracting the virus in any way, shape, or form.
Did you sign in
I
to
did.
speak? Okay, all right. Yeah, when we, here just a second, you'll be able to talk and,
Please tell me when.
I will, we'll call your name.
Thank you.
So is that, I mean, I'm fine with that, having that discussion and then going with it with the work session and ever how we want to proceed from there, if that's okay with the majority of the board. I mean, I think we've got to start having that discussion at some point, so,
Make that 14C.
See?
14C. I'm running out of room over here.
Discussion of virtual classes?
Yes.
Virtual Academy
Okay.
for 2021, 2022.
21, 22.
Okay. So with all that being said, would anybody like to make a motion on all funds?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with the additional items of 14A, B, and C.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Considine,
My second.
second by Mr. Tawby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, item number 3, approval of minutes for the April 19th, 2021 special meeting and the April 19th, 2021 regular meeting and the April 23rd, 2021 emergency meeting, and then the May 10th meeting we'll do separate because I was not there. So I'll have to- So would anybody like to make a motion for that?
I wonder if you need to pull out that emergency meeting, because I wasn't there. That was the
Yeah,
12
we can.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
You wanna do
right.
that? Yeah, we
Okay.
can.
Okay,
Which, that was the April 23rd? Okay.
yes.
So we're gonna vote the April 19th special and the April 19th regular. Would anybody like to make a motion for those two?
Make a motion to approve those minutes for April 19th. Special meeting and April 19th regular meeting.
All right, motion by Mr. Talby. I'll second that. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. The April 23rd, 2021 emergency meeting. I'll make a motion for that.
A second. Considine.
Okay. Motion by Richie, second by Considine. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Richardson not voting. And the May 10th, 2021 special meeting.
I make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Considine,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Richie not voting. Okay, student and staff recognition.
We have student recognitions tonight, and I think a lot of those folks are probably out in the hallway, so I'll go through this. This is for the Governor's Scholars Program. It's a summer residential program for outstanding high school students in Kentucky who are rising seniors. Students who are selected to attend the program without charge. The program's mission is to enhance Kentucky's next generation of civic and economic learners and leaders. During the program, students are immersed in a high learning program which has three components. A focus area, which is a major subject of study assigned according to scholar preference as indicated on their application. There's a general studies portion. That's an area of study assigned by the staff to challenge the scholars. Courses frequently include service learning components in the community. Then the seminar is a discussion-based small group session where emphasis is placed on respectful debate and discussion. The scholars are encouraged to ask probing questions. In order to participate in the program, students must be nominated by their high schools and then compete on a statewide level. Selection for the program is highly competitive, with an application process similar to that of prestigious colleges and universities. In addition to an academic profile that includes difficulty of course load, GPA, and at least one standardized test score, the application requires an outline of all extracurricular activities, a history of volunteer service, and a list of job positions held. Teacher recommendations include both quantitative evaluation and qualitative descriptions of the student's performance and potential. The final component is the application. The application is the original essay. We have 5 students that were selected to attend the Governor's Scholars Program this summer. And the first is Miss Emily Comer. Miss Hannah Craig. Kaylee Phelps. Karen Yang.
There you go.
Mr. Tennyson Prater. Congratulations to all of your students. It's a tremendous accomplishment. You'll be commended.
Yeah, it would be easier if they don't.
Can you all come up here and kind of circle around as a group so Randy can get you on the paper?
I got Governor's Scholar for the Arts.
We're going to go ahead and recognize you.
Ella Cooper.
Look at her first and then.
Ella.
Yes, Ella Cooper.
We'll have to go on the letter.
This is Miss Ella
I'll
Cooper.
just take a minute.
Governor's Scholars for the Arts Program.
2, 3.
Okay. Now I'm gonna have to get way back here again. Thank you. Are we ready? Thank you. That's all right.
Can you get a picture? Yes. You get it?
We also have a couple more students from the high school to be recognized tonight. Mr. Josh Vitai recently scored in the 75th percentile on the National French exam. I don't know if Josh has that. Josh scored in the 75th percentile of the National French exam. He won third place for his trifold.
This is Zach Gibson.
Josh Vitai isn't here because of job commitments.
Okay, so, okay.
Well, Zach also placed forward in the 75th
We'll go ahead.
percentile on the National French exam. He won second place for his trifold board, contrasting Ontario and Senegal at the KWLA State Showcase and scored an impressive intermediate high on his French interpersonal interviews. Congratulations, Zach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Paul, for full beer.
You really are trying to make this hard, Molly.
Yes. We have another student with us tonight from Baker Intermediate School, Miss Gabriella Maldonado. She was, we're here to congratulate her on being named as a finalist in KET's Young Writers Contest. Gabriella has displayed her creativity and writing talent with her short story, Small Tail, Big Tail. Congratulations and well recognized. This too is a statewide competition. Congratulations.
Got anything else over there? Okay. All right, public comments. We have Ms. Kimberly Cohon? Calhoun? Okay. You can come on up, it is your turn.
Thank you. I'm not very good at public speaking. Like I said, I'm a paramedic of 32 years. So you'll have to forgive me. I come on behalf of my daughter, Savannah, who, as I said, will be a senior this coming fall. She has to learn by virtual. Her father is a Gulf War veteran who is 100% disabled. He's total care. And that's what I do with my day, is I raise her and I raise him. She cannot attend the school in person. And she is extremely upset at this point that she will not be allowed to graduate with the people she's known since kindergarten. We've looked at online homeschooling. It is poor, to say the least. She's worked very hard to achieve academic success in this district. We moved here to this district 12 years ago strictly because of the schools. And for her not to be able to continue and graduate with her friends would be pretty devastating. She works hard at home. She enjoys the virtual. She can see her friends, in the classes. She's able to keep up with them through email and through Zoom. She will be a French 3 student under Madame Kohler. She doesn't want to leave Madame Kohler, and we cannot find French 3 in homeschooling programs online. She intends to pursue that through at UK. And she can, because her father being a veteran, her college is already paid for by the Veterans Administration. So I come tonight to ask you, on her behalf, to please strongly consider that she cannot risk catching this disease and bringing it home to her father. It would be fatal. And to consider that she continue her virtual studies this fall and be allowed to graduate with the people she's grown up with, instead of having to go to some rather impersonal homeschool online. And that's the whole reason I came, because it's from the heart. This is what she wants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do ask that you make your decision soon. By the rules of the state, I have 30 days to submit a letter to you stating that we will be setting up a homeschool and homeschooling her if you choose not to allow virtual this fall. She does have the laptop, and I am told by Mr. Schnell that Apex Learning is ready and raring to go. It's not too hard to do it. So I would strongly ask you make your decision very shortly, so that if I have to pivot and do this homeschooling thing, I'm within the guidelines the state requests. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I know there are other students in the district like us that, it's not so much about the student's health, it's the parent. And she has one father. He's everything to her, and she is his only child. So I would ask very strongly, please keep us in the loop, tell us as soon as possible, so that we can be in compliance either with you or with the state if we have to. But I really, really do not want to see her leave Madam Fuller. I can't praise that lady high enough, or Mr. Hines. They have just been extraordinary this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mary Mala, what? What, say it.
Maldonado.
Thank you.
She may have signed it, I think she needed to sign it for her daughter.
She needed what?
She may have signed it for her daughter to get this. She may have signed it, I think she was supposed to sign it for her.
Okay.
I'm not sure, she's not here now.
Lorraine, Lolina.
Never done this before. I apologize if I seem like I'm stuttering a lot, but I wanted to ask when my children might be able to stop using the masks. They don't like them. My father is recovering from bacterial pneumonia from the masks, so I don't want to endanger them that way. I don't want to be endangered that way. The statistics are on their side. They're the least likely to get this virus and the least likely to contribute it to society. If they can't contribute it, why are we masking them? So can they stop wearing them? They deserve and they have a right to normalcy. They have a right to go to school and be with their peers and be taught by a teacher, learn what we all need to know when we get older, managers, coworkers. They need this thing. They want this thing, but they don't want the masks. My son asks regularly when we will burn them. He does not want them. I'm noticing their acne. They're getting acne. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. They should not be getting acne. My daughter got sick. I imagine it was probably a cold, maybe allergies, I don't know what, but she seemed to improve, and we thought, yes, go back to school. And then she started to get sick again. So I can't help but wonder if the masks are contributing to her staying sick perpetually because she's breathing in her own bacteria. So I'm curious, if children were never threatened the way older populations are, why are we treating them like they're the most vulnerable? They're not. Can we end the masking of our children and still allow them to continue in the classrooms? And their medical concerns are my responsibility. I don't appreciate that it's being taken away from me. My health should be my concern. Their health should be my concern. So please end the masks.
Thank you. Was this Mary gonna come back or?
I think she just signed up to, because her daughter's receiving the other.
Okay, I got you. We are now on item number 4. We have KASA and Ms. Cogley outside. Okay, so you're.
Happy to step up.
Good evening. Thank you so very much for allowing KSA to come tonight to speak to you about the very important job that you're about to do, undertaking superintendent search. I know that you have information in your packet. I'll just go quickly over the highlights of what KSA stands for. We are quality leaders, and we believe that that equals quality schools. We are a very strong organization of Kentucky school administrators with 3,200 members across the Commonwealth, comprising almost every branch of administration, and you are very well represented in Clark County. We value you, and we have many of your members who are associated with many of our various programs. Our program is in 2 branches. Owen Saylor is our program developer. He is a veteran educator. He and I have had many opportunities to work together in Jessamine County schools when he was the deputy superintendent and I was instructional coordinator. And then he took on the position as superintendent in Davis County and I became superintendent of Jessamine County schools. So Owens acts as our liaison and he is the program director and coordinator for those services. I am the Central Kentucky lead. I have 36 years of public school education, Kathy Fields. 31 years of those dedicated to school and district level administration. I've worked in every level of school from preschool all the way up to superintendent with the exception of DPP, so I understand public school inside and out. Former principal, had some work I've been with international work as well. What we're going to do is work for you. Our responsibility is for you. One search, one consultant at a time. We facilitate the initial planning and process. We walk you through the delivery of communication with your stakeholders. We oversee the complete process for you. We advertise and recruit, and we have a new serve that goes out broadly so that everyone in the state, as well as anyone connected with AESA, also gets that information so that your search would be a very valid and viable search. We assist the board in your criteria development if you so choose to do so. We communicate and coordinate with your finalist activities. Again, if you choose to do a special opportunity for the superintendent-elects or finalists to come in for a preview, we'll work with you to do that as well. Then we walk you straight through the interview and the final selection process. Most importantly for you as a board is that we ensure from start to finish that our logistics are handled properly and efficiently. We ensure that the process is done legally, ethically, and with great professionalism as it befits Clark County Board of Education. After your superintendent is selected, and this is what sets KSA apart, we are the sole provider for the year-long required statutory new superintendent training. Our support for your superintendent development is in the development of the 30, 60, 90-day action plans with measures and goals. There will be assigned a mentor that will work alongside of them. We will support the development of your superintendent's first professional growth plan based on your interest and the state's required performance goals. And again, that's the beauty of KSA, start to finish. We start with you, we understand what your qualities are that you're looking for. We go all the way to that first year of evaluation so that we can assist your superintendent candidate in that regard as well. We mentor, support, and again provide by KSA through the end of that first year evaluation and that capstone, which is again statutory presentation there. Again, it serves as a win-win for your district. We are here to support you, and we're here to support your candidate as well. I know that Owens has sent out a packet from our director, Rhonda Caldwell, who has attached our pricing package to the back, and if you have any questions, I'll entertain them at this time.
I do have a question on, I think with the lateness of our search.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I think you would agree with that it's somewhat late.
Yes.
Or later. What is your interim talent pool like?
I actually broached that subject because we do have a few superintendents who would be willing and able, perhaps, to entertain a conversation about an interim. However, if you choose not to go that way, I can also help you with an aggressive search, which would allow you to seat a superintendent by the end of July, 1st of August.
How long has KSA performed superintendent searches?
How long have we performed? Oh my goodness. That's a really good question, and I may have to get back to you. I'd say at least 10 years, 15 years at least.
And just off the top of your head, how many searches have you all completed? I mean, like in the last year or two?
Again, I couldn't tell you that because I just retired, so I've just come on. I know that they were a very viable option when I was superintendent, and they are broad across the state at this point with superintendent searches.
Do you have any current searches?
I will be finishing up my Mercer County search on Thursday night, so if you decided KSA was the selection committee you'd like to work with tonight, by the time the paperwork is signed and the ink dried, I'd be ready to start.
So what would you say to someone that says KSA is, their backbone is for administrators and superintendents across the state, and, you know, as KSBA is for
Correct.
school boards.
Correct.
So how would you differentiate, and I know I see a couple of things, but your loyalty is to who? To the administrators?
Our
or to the
loyalty is
board?
to the process. So we have a statutory obligation to make sure that the process is done ethically and legally. We do, as I said before, follow the board all the way through to the end of the superintendent's first year. So that's the beauty and the caveat and the uniqueness of what KSA does. We don't stop at just helping you find a superintendent. We go the rest of the way with that superintendent for that first year and help them understand these are the qualities, these are how the board reached those qualities and characteristics that brought you to this position. And this is how you can leverage that in your district.
So with a superintendent, if we didn't use your KSA and a superintendent came in, wouldn't they be part of the KSA when they came in?
That is their option to join, yes.
Okay.
By statutory requirements, they would have to be part of the program. That is correct. That is correct, yes.
They have to do the capstone.
That's correct. They have to do the capstone. That's correct. And that leads into your first evaluation. Yes.
We would be your only search,
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
And we would have some on-site time.
I live in Nicholasville, so it takes me about 45 minutes to drive here. I'm very familiar with the area. Taught in Bath County, lived in Nicholas County, so I'm very familiar with this area. So this would not be an issue at all to come and be on site. I handled all of Mercer's on site, and it actually works a little bit smoother than I think virtually, especially if you have an aggressive timeline. I think that's probably the caveat to that, is just to get face-to-face and get it moving as quickly as possible.
That's in your packages, right? I mean,
That's correct. Yes,
so
that's
that would be
correct.
our choice if she was virtual or.
That is correct. Yes,
Right.
those are options.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
those are
what-
options.
I'm having technical difficulty with my
Yes,
internet
ma'am.
right now.
Yes, yes. There are packages that consider the option of virtual, and then the one that most take is that platinum, which is all in.
Okay.
And then again, there are the two add-ons, if you decide you want the quality survey or if you want a showcase, a superintendent showcase. Other than that, everything else is included. Mileage, time, everything. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate your
Thank you.
consideration.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Come on in.
Y'all ready for us?
We are.
How are you all doing this evening?
Good, how are you?
It's nice to see you all.
Nice to see you.
Just a second.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to come tonight to present to you all. My name is Ketsy Fields, and I am the Senior Director for Cognia in Kentucky. And just a little, Cognia is your all's accrediting organization. You all are a member, and my role is to work with all the schools in Kentucky and the institutions and systems that are accredited.
Hi, it's nice to see you all this evening. My name's Lisa Stone, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Improvement Services for Cognia. We have a team that is really across the country, and we support improvement work. And so that's why we are here this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to share with you all some potential opportunities for us to work with you, if you so choose. We're very fortunate to have in our team of improvement services a core group that actually reside in Kentucky, even though we have a team across the country. So we want to tell you first a little bit about Cognia, because you are members and many people may not understand the expansion of all the work we do.
So thank you for whoever took care of the PowerPoint. So just very quickly, Cognia is a nonprofit, global nonprofit. We are in over 36,000 schools and systems. We're in 85 countries, so we're international. But our whole job is to work with schools and systems on continuous improvement. And you'll see that reflected in both our mission and our vision. We want to be your trusted partner in advancing learning for students. That's in this ever-changing landscape that we're living in education. We see our role as continuous improvement in helping schools and systems to move in that direction to positively impact what they do for the kids in the district. As Lisa said, you all know us by accreditation. That's what we've been known for. A lot of you may even know us as Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. That was way back in our beginning. We're in our 125th year, by the way. So that's what a lot of people know us by, Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. Through some mergers with other accrediting organizations, we became Advance Ed. I think when you all went through the process, that's what we were at the time. Since then, a couple of years ago, we merged with an assessment company, Measured Progress. So now we are in the assessment business. So we have a lot of services that we offer to schools and systems. As a member right now, your teachers already have access to the formative content library, which is in the platform. That's assessments for grades 3 through 8. English, I think language arts, math, and science. They have that already. The other options, we have online interim and formative that just, they can do online. We have assessment review services, so if you all have developed your own assessments throughout the district, we can review them for sensitivity, bias, equality, rigor, are they aligned to your standards? And we also do test construction, where we can develop benchmarks based on your content. The last two are why we're here tonight, a little bit about improvement services, professional learning. That's what we have really expanded, where Lisa's whole team is devoted to that. And we do professional learning for schools and systems around whatever their needs may be. So we feel like that we can help you as you all grow as a board and begin that search for your next superintendent. And we always go ahead, thank you. We always kind of look at this. Every institution, school system can always be better. We ask the question, are you all board members of a good school system? Are you all board members of a great school system? Are you board members of a perfect school system? We know there's no such thing, but we also know that as a board, your role is to improve outcomes for students. We can always get better. And we appreciate the opportunity to say we're here to help you grow as a board and support you as you begin that search. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
So what we'd like to do tonight, we sent to you a proposal, but it's really just to get a conversation started in case you're interested in that. Because we customize our work based on need. And so based on some of our understanding, we shaped this around board governance and responsibilities, which I will in a minute share in more detail what that kind of means. And to really grasp our world-renowned Cognia performance standards that are used for systems and schools to kind of look at the future and in establishing superintendent criteria. So first of all, you'll notice in our proposal that probably, and you can go to the next slide, sorry. In our proposal, the very first section of that is about planning. So we come tonight with a proposal, not a set plan. We're about helping. And the critical part that we do before we help is we listen. And so if you desire our services to support your work in moving forward, we will design not necessarily this plan, but one around to meet that of listening and interacting with you all to meet your needs. And so that's what we will consider as we have those conversations and as you all engage with one another around your superintendent search. So the whole first section is around planning. and listening and working with you. So some ideas that we had for that to just kind of, for you to understand a lot of the work that we've been doing around the country, is we do board governance, professional learning. But that looks different from state to state, from board to board. And we, a lot of it is around introduction to the standards, collaboration and communication. And it can be around actual responsibilities and that engagement and relationship with superintendent. So the next part of our proposal, if you want to move on. Okay. This is critical. Your system uses cognitive performance standards to be accredited, but accreditation is about continuous improvement. And so our performance standards serve as a measure. There are divided in 3 domains around leadership, learning, which is about teaching and learning, and resource capacity, and how you maximize your resources. 2, impact learner. We are all about impacting the learner, impacting the teacher, and leaders. And you all are leaders of this community. And so part of the presentation is about, if you want to spend some time really diving into those standards, which would help you as board members start to shape what is needed and what you are wanting to focus on for your next superintendent. So we have that in the plan. And then the next one, this is, we have a new strategic thinking process. And so I'll share just high level what that is. We have developed a new system around those 4 phases in the middle of this process around envisioning, planning, implementation, and evaluating. What we see as appropriate as a board as you enter into your superintendent process to search for a superintendent is to envision. And what we do with envisioning is take a look at your current reality, and you all already have tools to gather stakeholder input and community input, but what is your, looking at lots of data and determining your current reality. And from your current reality, envisioning the future. And then kind of stopping there, because that's where you all would be as a Board of Education in this process. So we would want to work with you on imagining those possibilities and engaging with your stakeholders in order to lead up to your criteria for your superintendent. So the last part is that through you all learning deeply about the standards, about leadership, learning, and resources, about envisioning your future and establishing those priorities, then we could take you through a process to help establish your criteria for the superintendent. We know the screening committee does that as well, and it may help you in envisioning that and working toward that. So, Ketsy and I talked a lot about, do we take this to the next step of actually proposing as a search to help you with your search? We feel like that is not our area of expertise, so we want to be very transparent with that. You've had absolutely excellent organizations present and who are experienced in superintendent searches, so we're here this evening to provide options to work with you, building team and building your knowledge level as you seek your next superintendent. So given that, we will be happy to.
He left that last screen up. You're all aware, or I know some of you, that's our platform. That's where all our tools are, and that's where the survey, that's where the strategies, and those are things that we can help you work with as you start seeking that stakeholder input.
I'm not great at following the PowerPoint.
Well, I just saw the slide over there.
So could you help us with a survey to reach out to parents and community members to see what they think is important for a superintendent, what that might look like?
You can design that little survey icon you see. You can customize your survey any way you want. And you get a link, and you can put that link in a newsletter. You can put that link anywhere you want to send it out to whoever you want.
But I think what part of that too is, what questions do you want to ask? And so a lot of that work is leading up to, what do you want to ask and who do you want to ask? And we could help support developing. We have content surveys in the platform, but we have the option of customizing and developing your own surveys. And so what is it that you want to ask to get that feedback from your stakeholders, what community and teachers and maybe even students? So that's already a tool that you have, and we can help support the use of that.
Other questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
We appreciate
Thank
the
you so much.
opportunity.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
being here, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5, consider approval to accept the Senate Bill 128 applications.
Hello,
Hello, Ms. Ritchie.
I am Ashley Ritchie.
Yeah.
We have tonight, as you know, there's a mic here, I don't want to muffle it. Tonight, as you know, this is where we have to take a look at the supplemental school year applications. This is an all or none procedure, so we can't pick and choose which ones, who we choose and who we select. So I'll give you some numbers. In the district, there were 64 applications that were received by the deadline. 2 came in late. 1 was later that day, 1 was the next day. So we have a total of 66 that came in within 24 hours of the deadline. Some of your numbers to make up the 2 that came in late. 1 was a Strode, 1 was a GRC. And then specifically, you have at Strode, 5 requests. That has been discussed due to some potential moving. I believe we're potentially at 3 to 4 instead of 5 there, but there were 5 requests, so we'll stay with that. Shear has 3, Justice has 4, Conkright has 2, Baker has 4, RDC has 8, and GRC has 38 for a total of 64 plus the 2 mentioned earlier. So this would be basically approving whether you would like to give that as an option in Clark County for the next school year for all students or not.
What's the breakdown of GRC as far as grade levels?
Grade levels would be, what's the feeling on this? Typically the feeling is when it's fewer than 10, it can be identifiable. This is a precursor, so I want to mention this so that we don't get into something later on. Can I mention, for the sake of confidentiality, the 2 that are above 10? Can I say that? Would that work? Or do you all want to hear what each one are? Because some are fewer than 10. They wouldn't be identifiable this year, but it could be something that people could reflect on and then for next year, so I wanted to make that mention to you.
So you're saying there's only 2 above 10?
Correct.
Grade 10?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need.
Okay.
What's the feeling of providing the resources for these students to repeat? And any sort of repercussions of them repeating?
Repercussions of them repeating would be certainly one of the bigger ones, and we haven't wanted to go there first. But looking at repercussions, I would think that one of the first things that jumps to mind is that if they turn 19 on or before August the 1st of their senior year, they would not be able to participate in athletics. In looking at the applications, I can say that the ones who were in elementary school and Baker, they were not thinking in terms of that because they did not process what the age would be. Sometimes on the applications, they would put, we put, what would your student be at the time of their senior year, what age, and they put 9. So I think when they looked at it, it was so far off into the future. Now, those people that were in RDC and at GRC, they seem to process that and compute that because most of the time, those ages were correct when we went back to double check. That would be a ramification for those people. So if someone is a late bloomer, say in athletics, they're holding back in, say, 3rd or 4th grade, but they don't develop that aptitude until later on, it could potentially harm them from being able to play their senior year, and that could be something that's a scholarship versus not, where they don't get looked at, so that certainly would be one.
KSHAS, they will not be under the 19. Right, not gonna happen. So if they turn 19 before August the 1st of their senior year, they will not be allowed to participate in athletics.
And this is going to be explained to them more in detail.
Correct.
The recommendation is with, and meeting with every principal, if you move forward with this, is that they will meet with the principal and counselor, will meet with every set of parents and students.
So they'll understand, they'll know that.
Yeah. So then at that point in time, they could then make that
Decide,
decision
right.
for themselves once it's explained fully to them. But what we've talked about, just like Mr. Christie had said, is that everybody has to have a sit-down meeting to be considered, so you have that. It is not a form, or it's not word of mouth. It's actually a sit-down explanation.
So at GRC, we have, with 38, would teacher allocation need to be changed?
Potentially.
Because it seems like they're kind of in grades that,
Well, I mean, I can tell you which two, they're above 10, so I don't think we're going to reach a confidentiality. It's your freshman at 13,
Okay.
and it's your 11th grade at
The
15.
allocations are numbers. So-
Right.
So yes, it could potentially,
It could,
that does
okay.
qualify for an additional teacher. And it's 38 more kids would qualify for another teacher behind.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not by
In the staffing
grade.
allocation.
I'm sorry.
What'd you say, 11th grade?
11th grade was 15. I don't mean to make you nervous by pulling my mask down or anything.
No,
I just
you're
wanted to be
fine.
able to be heard, so.
No, you're good.
Do you know of any, like, surrounding counties that have already determined that they're going to move forward with this?
Not heard any for sure, whether any are going to, that's not something that we
Most
were,
of them meet this week.
this is going to
week.
be this time frame where that they let that know, because, and some of them have even waited, I know, until the last week in May, and then they're going to make that kind of spring. So we felt at least comfortable by saying meetings on the 17th, we can at least inform them, plus give them enough time to meet with administration before summer plans start coming.
I know in the press and online, it seems like a lot of it had to do with athletics, but from these numbers, it's truly an educational decision that these parents are making. Other than, the young elementary schools may not be thinking that far ahead, but what's your take on that?
I would think that that's fair with certainly with the high schools, you could make the case for that, maybe even going down to RDC, just having served as an administrator in a middle school building. People are starting to think about that and starting to think of the development as an athlete and whatnot. When you really start to look at those that are in the elementary and Baker, I would say that those would be made on an educational basis, and they would be making that feeling like that would give their child an opportunity to have another year as truly a redo year.
Nobody's talked to these parents yet even this has just been thrown out there for them, correct?
Correct.
Completion
So I'm
of
just
the
kind of
application.
wondering, once, you get into all that, how many will change and want to go to summer school and change
That was part of the form that regardless of any type of participation in summer school, and what that could therefore do. Taking that off of the table, would you still be supportive of participating in the redo year? So that was a part of the questionnaire that was on there. Yeah.
But if they, after you all talk to them and sit down and discuss this, will they be able to still enter into summer school?
Yes. I don't want to, now listen, we've got principals who are watching, and they're compiling their summer school list, finalizing that, putting all that in place and communicating that out. So I don't want to speak holistically on behalf of what people have with plans, but I would think, yes, that would still give folks the opportunity, because we are still a few weeks out before summer school begins, and I don't think that we're talking about enough numbers from what they have communicated to me that would alter and be so drastic that would change things tremendously. But apologies to the principals if they're railing right now. I don't think that would.
I mean, with these numbers, I don't see it having a burden on the district unless I'm missing something. What is your take on that, if this is approved?
I think it would take a look at adding additional staff members, but to look at the way that you phrased it and how I've seen some of the numbers, and I haven't seen all the counties, but I know some may be in the 20s and 30s, but I know others that are not giant districts. We're considered a large district, but not a giant district. But some of these they're in the hundreds and that sort of thing. Really, when you look at it comparatively speaking, for a lot of districts, we're talking in that 1 to 3% of your total population, and that seems as though most people's feelings are that that's doable to be able to work with.
What will this do to your graduation rate?
Yes, our graduation rate will take a hit with that.
64 kids.
Yes.
Don't meet graduation requirement.
Yep.
Say that again?
You'll have 64 kids who won't meet graduation requirement.
So that would be a negative as well.
You know, it might take a hit, but will their education be better by refeeding? I would think it would. We should get that
But
opportunity.
then again, on the other hand, it's your ADA too, so it's an increase in ADA.
I think if I can say, just offer one thing from the educational side, that, and I'm not saying yes or no to it, I feel like I'd be remiss if I walked off of this and not said this. We have long tried to avoid retaining students because the prevailing educational thought is it creates a hardship down the road, and every year that a child is retained, they're that much less likely to graduate. Now, that's not going to be holistically for every child, and certainly if the parents are involved in this decision, I would have to harbor a guess is that they're probably much better off because the parents and you're working together with it. But one of the things that I know people have talked about, not just here, but in other counties as well, is while this may have been well-intentioned, it is still a sort of a sanction of retention in some ways. And what does that do for those students when they see? And I do worry about some of those students who the parents are wanting to hold them back, and they see their friends moving on and what that does for them. So I do think that we have to be very conscious and conscientious with, if this is something that's approved, that we really provide some wraparound services for those kids emotionally and as support, because I would hate to think that you've got kids that are good students that could see their friends move on and they just don't understand why it was that they got held back, and it becomes something that's, they don't like school as much. So I think that's something we're going to have to put in place for those kids.
So will the principal of each school not only interview or communicate with the parents, but the student will be with them and you know, that could be part of that whole discussion.
Yes.
And if, at that point, say this was approved, and the principal came back and said, hey, I'm really worried about this student emotionally not being held back. I guess at that point, it would still be up to parents if they want to receive that.
It would still be up to the parents. I think that would be where we would try to impress upon the principals and those who are speaking to the parents specifically to say, please please make sure you're reading the room. Please make sure you're reading the body posture. Please use these nonverbal cues, because a child may not, in the fourth grade or third grade, that the child's maybe not going to communicate that they don't want to, but what's their body language going to be? And oftentimes when we have those discussions, I think those of us who have worked in support services, we oftentimes watch for those nonverbal cues. And I think that's going to be very critical. But I think your point to be made is, I think that probably should be a criteria, that this is a family type of dynamic that meets with the administration, so that the child has a say, even whether they be 6 or whether they be 16. At least they're there to hear.
Oh. I mean, I'm just interested if
I mean,
anybody had
it's-
any discussion.
Yeah, I mean, this one's a hard decision. I don't think there really is a right answer on this one.
After the year we just had, me personally, I'd hate to think that we would deprive someone of catching up if that was, if they had the opportunity to. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve and accept Senate Bill 128 application.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, before you all get into the finance, does anybody bring you something in finance? I know you're bad.
Yeah, get up and move for
Yeah,
just a
you wanna
minute.
take a 5 minute?
Yeah,
break?
if everybody's in line.
All right, we'll take a 10-minute recess.
7:30.
Yeah, it's 7:31. us back in session at 7:42 PM. We all missed it by 1 minute. So, we're on item number 6.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So this is something we typically bring before you. Indirect costs is in this district been in regards to food service only. And last year, just a summary, just due to all the COVID stuff and the hit that they took to Fund 51 with not serving meals in the traditional manner, we asked that you waive that fee, which is essentially a way of putting monies from Fund 51 into Fund 1, our general fund, as a revenue source for our indirect costs, which in the presentation it listed the stuff that covers is like your human resources, your payrolls, the superintendent's office procurement, overhead, utilities and auditing, just all those indirect costs that you can't put a specific cost to each program for that serves the whole district. Another piece to that this district has never utilized is also charging that cost to grant funds, your federal grant funds. And being that we had a very healthy general fund, we just never took advantage of that because we didn't need to. But with all the federal funding that has come down the pike with all this CARES Act money, that is a very large source of revenue that you could put into general fund that I would be remiss not to bring to you as an option for you all to vote on. And we've actually been told by KDE that indirect costs on the CARES Act money specifically, we can use the higher rate that we also charged food service, which is called a non-restrictive rate, and it's like 11%. The federal grants, all your other grants like your titles and all that kind of stuff, we can only charge like I think it's 1.6 this year. What's that in front of me? 1.61% this year. Next year it's 1.77%. And there's a calculation that the state does to make those percentages for us to tell us what we're eligible to charge. But with that being said, the eligible costs that we are allowed to charge in the fiscal 21 year, which I must charge by June 30th, or we will miss the opportunity to charge those, we can put $2.5 million in our general fund. So you're talking federal dollars that have restrictions on them, that you have to spend them in a certain manner, is giving you the option to put $2.5 million into your general fund as a revenue source for indirect costs that you then have no restrictions on. It becomes the pot of your money that you can divvy out and spend on whatever source you need to spend it on for your district, and you're not restricted by a matrix of how you spend it. So that's what tonight is. I've put a summary together showing you just kind of historically, had you taken costs over the years, what we would have been putting in as a revenue source. But this year is just the crucial year because of all of those CARES Act monies that we've gotten, that the opportunity is there for us. And I've just put on the table to go ahead and approve those rates for next year for any additional monies that could come down to us, since we've already gotten the rates that we're allowed to charge next year. And right now, we don't even know what all those funding sources are. They've not told us what all of our federal grants are next year, but it's $2.5 million possible revenue that we could close the year out with, extra that we were not planning on in any way whatsoever. So any questions?
No, I think that one sentence, or 2 sentences you said actually covered it for me.
And it's still the recommendation not to charge food service at the time, but simply to continue to allow Fund 51 to recover until we get back in normal session of serving and their revenue source.
So what will that do to, well, I think I'm just going to be positive, what will that do to our overall year end for 2021, putting that in the general fund?
It would make it very nice.
Yeah.
You will see next week when we present, we are gonna have a better budget than was presented in January, just from everything that has occurred, not even taken into consideration is 2.5. We're still looking at, which I kind of alluded to at the quarter, at least $2 million that we thought we weren't gonna spend. I conservatively just did $1 million in the budget instead of the full $2 million, but here's 2.5 that obviously is not going to get spent in any way whatsoever if we do it, because we're doing it right now at the end of the year. So it will 100%, there's $2.5 million in your beginning balance to start next year that we were not planning on. that would go into contingency. So, I mean, we're talking a contingency close to $9 million, where we've been hanging out around the $4 million range the last year or so. So, and again, it sits there for uses that are unrestricted, like you all can make decisions on things that need to be done for the district with that pot of money that we've kind of been restrictive on for the last couple of years due to our situation.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve, approval to charge indirect cost rate for fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022.
Motion by Mr. Tolby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 7, consider approval of employment of teachers with emergency certification for the 2021-2022 school year.
Same thing that you do each year, it's just primarily for substitute teachers. As they come out of college, if they graduate mid-year, we can go on hiring substitute teachers, finish out years of great way to kind of drive teachers and get them out. Get them in classrooms that is for substitute teachers. We have no teachers employed on emergency substitute in the classroom.
They'd like to make a motion.
I make a motion to consider the approval of the emergency certification for the 21-22 school year.
Motion by Ms. Constein,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Tolby. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 8, consider approval of revised owner-architect agreement for KDE approved preschool new construction project, CG 21-247.
Justin, I ask you to put that. If I may, I'd like to begin with just a real brief review of the design and construction process timeline to give the board a general idea of what, I know it's pretty small, so I'll try to walk some of this through, a general idea of how to expect us to come before you throughout the course of these construction projects and ask for your approval or permission to move on to the next phase of a project, and typically how long that'll take. We have 3 items on the board agenda for you to consider tonight. And in doing so, I thought this would be a good way just to briefly introduce those 3 items and give you an idea of why we're here tonight and the next time you'll be seeing us along this process. So I apologize for it being small, but if I could just walk you through. Everything on the bottom is board required approvals. Everything on top or above the arrow line is what KDE is required to approve. The first, or the green section, indicates the preliminary planning and information gathering process, and that's when the architects will actually go into the buildings and start interviewing staff, programming they call that, and getting some general idea and data collected regarding what the staff is asking for, what best situations would portray with therapists and counselors and teachers, and what things are working for them, what things are not working for them. They'll survey those staff, create 2 different committees, and they've already done so, in fact, create a leadership committee meeting that involves district level staff, for example, and another committee of building level staff, and they'll go through that process, and typically that takes about 2 months. We're right at the beginning of that process right now, but before I talk any further about that, let me go through the other ones very quickly. The next process, which is typically 2 to 3 months, is your schematic design. The architects will take all of that information that they gathered through programming and start schematically designing what this building will look like based on what KDE requirements are for the building. In this case, it would be preschool, and what the staff is asking for. That's typically a 2 to 3 month process. Ending that process, about 5 months from today, we'd be coming back in front of the board and asking you to approve those schematic designs. If those were approved, they'd go to KDE for approval. Then we'd come back and immediately get into the design development stage. And that's the architects gathering more information and getting drawings attached with documents, materials added to these to where another 2 to 3 months process getting them prepared for them to transition into construction documents. So in about 8 months, we'd be coming and asking you for permission to approve the design development documents. In about 12 months, we'd be asking you to consider approval of the construction documents. And these would be documents that are very specifically designed for the contractors to begin their bids with or to initiate their bids with. And at that point, about 12 to 14 months from now, we'd be asking you and the Kentucky Board of Education or Kentucky Department of Education for approval to enter the bidding process. And that's when we'd put this out for bid with your permission. And we'd let that run about 4 to 6 more weeks. We'd get those bids back, and then we'd be coming back in front of the board again in about 14 weeks and asking you to approve the bidders for the projects. Following that begins your construction phase, which typically takes about 2 years. So very generally, from today, about 3 years from now.
To red, from green to red.
That's right, from green to red, we'd be looking at moving into a facility, whether that be the preschool facility that we're talking about now or the Phoenix facility. About a 3-year process on average, give or take, depending on the conditions and such. So today, we're looking all the way at the beginning. We're at the beginning of the programming phase still. What's not depicted on this document is the need for you to hire your architects or advertise for your architects and your construction managers or your general contractors. Once those are picked, then you'll begin formally getting into your programming stages, which is the beginning of this green area. Okay, so the 3 things we have on your agenda to approve tonight, or to consider approval tonight, is the revised contract for your preschool. You already hired an architect for your preschool many moons ago. The KDE requires that with every new BG1, that you do a new a new contract with your architect, which is a standard KDE document that plugs in all of the data from your approved BG1 into this document, and then the architects and the board signs that, and you have another agreement for your new BG1 project that was most recently passed or approved by KDE. And I don't necessarily want to get into the next 2 agenda items without being too preliminary, but that is right now what we're asking you with regard to your preschool project, is to approve for the revised contract with your architects to continue on to the programming phase, given the data that had to be entered into this new standard document with KDE for the BG1 that was just recently passed. If you'd like to go ahead and address that one now, then I can move on to the
So
next one.
this is just for the preschool, not for Phoenix?
That's correct. You've already hired an architect for your preschool. This would be a continuation based on the BG1 that was just approved by KDE for that project only.
Okay.
And KDE makes us do a revision of that contract, correct?
Every time you do a new BG1, you have to do a revision to that standard architect-owner agreement contract.
I got a question on section 1.1.5, where it says, all intents to retain construction manager, advisor, and we've got multiple prime contractors instead of one contractor. Is that normal? I mean, I don't know. That was just an explanation of why we have multiple prime contractors instead of a construction manager and one contractor.
That's general contracting and construction management.
Yeah.
Section 1.1.5, box is checked.
Page 3 of 33.
Keep going, almost there, right there.
Yeah, I see that.
Multiple prime contractors.
So when you if you hire a construction manager for this project, all the subcontractors have a direct contract with the Board of Education. So for instance, that's exactly how it worked at the GRC Athletics field and the gymnasium. Codell in that instance was the construction manager, and they bid that project out and managed those subcontracts, but every one of those subcontractors had a contract directly with the Board of Education. So that's what that means, multiple prime contractors.
You basically have 2 options, construction management or general contractor.
Well, I thought the subcontractors had a contract with the general contractor, not with the Board of Education.
That's if you take the general contractor model. If you take the construction management model, all of the contractors are contracted with the board, not with the general contractor. You have two options. You have your option for general contracting, which means that you have a general contractor that contracts, that agency contracts with all your subcontractors. We only deal with that one per entity, one contractor. If you go with construction management, like a Codell company, then all of your contractors contract with you. So you have multiple contractors contracting with you. They just manage that arrangement between the board and the contractors.
That's why with the athletics project, when you review pay applications, you had multiple pay applications as opposed to a single pay application. Because, and Codell provided a summary of all those, but each one of those pay applications was tied to a contract.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Now, the benefit of construction
Just when you
management,
said all subcontractors had a contract with the school system, I don't know if that's, is that, anyway, we'll take that offline.
well, one of the benefits of using construction management is you have
But this is way, and I hate to interrupt, this is why we did it at the.
yeah, and the benefit of that is you have a firm on site when you're educating kids on site. So they manage, they coordinate the ins and outs of contractors doing work while kids are in that building or on that site being educated. That's kind of tricky. If you're out somewhere in Egypt somewhere doing a contract site, you wouldn't necessarily need that direct supervision or coordination between contractors and principals and teachers and students and buses and all of that that's happening on that campus.
In addition to that, you break those individual bid packages up to eliminate that contract markup. So you have smaller packages. You may get 5, 6 paint bids, 5, 6 electrical bids. So they're contracted directly with you. You don't have somebody else over the top of them just putting profit on top of their number. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the same way both GRC projects are done, Justice, Contract, Campbell, they've all been multiple direct prime contracts.
That's fine, I was just asking for an explanation.
Yeah, it's a lot more work on finance and other departments, but it's a more efficient model when you have kids on site being educated.
Well, I make a motion to approve the revised owner architect agreement with KDE, approved preschool reconstruction project PG 21-247.
Motion by Mr. Tolby. I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, item number 9.
Item number 9, and that is to advertise for an architectural firm for the Phoenix Academy. KDE has taken the position that we would be required to request at least letters of interest from architectural firms to address that new construction project because it is a separate project, a separate entity from our high school. It's not necessarily, in their minds, a continuation of the phases of the high school development because the Phoenix Academy currently exists off campus, off of that campus, and separate from that program. So in consultation with the construction department of KDE, they said that we would be required to advertise for that service for that program. So this request is to ask the board for your approval to solicit letters of interest from architectural firms specifically related to the BG1 for the new Phoenix Academy located on the GRC campus.
Because it's tied to that BG1, is that why Clark County Preschool is listed as well?
I'm sorry, could you say?
Because it's tied to the new BG1, like the Phoenix Academy, because it says, letters of interest for services for the preschool and Phoenix Academy projects. I thought we already had.
That is correct. Did I? I'm sorry, I don't have that agenda item on me.
You're on number 10.
Oh, I'm on number 10.
That's for construction management.
That's for the, I was like, oh my gosh, because
That was a good curveball. You had me there.
I love it. I got you thinking, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I thought she had me there.
I did have 10A up, sorry. No, when I look at 9A, it says, I mean, maybe it should say preschool in Phoenix, I don't know, I just don't want
No.
something to get hung up in.
I'm sorry. Oh, it should just say Phoenix. You're correct. It should just say Phoenix is what John's saying.
Yeah, the letter is
Because it sounds like you're requesting letters of interest for.
I see your point, and you're correct. That's right. I would ask you to scratch preschool off of that one. It's two separate projects.
Yeah, that letter is usually scratched. I was just looking at the agenda item.
Oh, but it is correct on the agenda?
The agenda's correct.
The agenda's correct. On number 9. But yeah, I'm glad. Good catch.
I didn't want it to get hung up, you know.
Absolutely not.
So we're only gonna accept the letters of interest until May 21st?
We can extend that to whatever date that you would like. Today, yeah, we would need to extend that.
17.
Yeah, we would need to extend that for a longer period of time.
What's the normal range, date range?
John, typically,
Is it 2 weeks? 30 days?
I think the minimum is what, 7?
7 days.
7 days.
Now, let me just follow up and say too, that once these letters came in, if you were to approve this, then you would have the option of choosing one of the firms that have submitted the letter of interest, or requiring a more formalized RFP process, which is far more comprehensive, or asking these firms to come in and submit interviews in front of you so that you can choose that. You wouldn't be selecting them until those letters of interest came in, then we would have to come back to you again and ask for your consideration of the ones that have submitted letters of interest. Is that correct? So this is just requesting approval to ask for the letters from people who would be interested, who may be interested.
Make a motion to approve item 9 is written.
Motion by Mr. Tolby. Second that one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 10.
Okay, this one's a little trickier. KD's requirement is that with new construction projects that are less than $2 million, you must use the general contracting model. This goes back to the question you had earlier. You cannot use the construction management model with projects less than $2 million. Considering that our Phoenix Academy is estimated at the $1.8 million level, that's below $2 million, so KD is requiring that we either use the general contractor model or ask the Kentucky Board of Education for a waiver. And you can ask the Kentucky Board of Education for a waiver if you have simultaneous projects happening at the same time. So the reason that we have it submitted to you in this format is with the intention of these two projects, the Phoenix Academy project and the preschool projects, running simultaneously with the same expected bid date frames and construction frames. And given that, the Kentucky Department of Education and the Kentucky Board of Education historically has given permission for boards to waive that minimal requirement of $1.8 million and go with a construction manager for both projects if you so choose. Now, there are benefits, obviously, of going with construction management with both projects as opposed to having construction management on one and general contracting the other. You're dealing with a lot of different people. So we would like to recommend to the board that you consider the model of construction management for both and ask KDE for a waiver. But the first step in that process is asking for letters of intent, just like we ask you for the architects. We have to put that out and ask people who would be interested in submitting construction management services, if that's what you chose, with requesting letters of interest. And once again, once those letters came in, we would come back to the board and say, these are the folks that have, the firms that have voiced their interest. How would you like to address these? Would you like to accept one of these firms? Would you like to do RFPs? Or would you like to interview the firms that have voiced interest?
So is that two separate steps, though, where we're requesting letters of interest, but then we also need to submit a request, or will need?
It is two.
It's two separate steps, correct?
That's correct.
So do we need to, does the agenda need to be modified to reflect that? Or because it's?
Are you talking about for the advertisement, or are you talking about for the selection?
Well, for the item 10, when I read this, it looks like this is, it's just for the approval to advertise letters of interest.
That's correct, because you haven't selected them yet. Once you get these letters of interest, then as Donald explained, you can say, we want to go with X, or we want to speak with X, Y, and Z, or we want to send out RFPs to see what they come back in.
That's correct. It'll always be pending KDE approval.
Because we've got, so this is just to get it out there so that we can see who's interested.
But does KDE have to approve the construction manager's position?
They would, and after you select a firm, we would say that pending KDE approval, then we ship that up to KDE, and then, like I said, and we've already spoken with the folks at the State Department, and they've indicated that this is something that they would be very comfortable approving. So we've kind of done our research, and we know that they're open to this through previous consultation.
So for us, it's looking like two different projects, right? For the preschool and Phoenix, but when we're doing our letters of interest, it appears that it's one project.
For construction management, you're exactly correct.
Okay.
Now, if you went with the same architectural firm with the Phoenix Academy, it would be the same for that as well. You had Ross Trott doing both projects. But if you chose a different architect for Phoenix, then it's kind of a different.
But they're still two different separate BGs.
They're two separate BGs. Sort of similar to what our field house BG was and our gymnasium BG was on the athletic project. We had two BGs there too, but they worked simultaneously in many regards. And we had construction management for those two as well, but they were both over $2 million, so we didn't have to ask for a waiver from KDE for approval.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve item 10 as written.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Tobey, second by Mr. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 11.
Okay, as is customary, for many years now, the superintendent has directed your director of operations to solicit requests from all schools, I don't want to necessarily say principals because it's school staffs, to generate a summer work list of things that they would like to see done in their school over the course of the summer break. So I've done that. I've requested each school to submit a list. They've done so. What you have in front of you is a compilation of all of those requests at each school and each building, because we also consider transportation and maintenance and central office and those exterior buildings outside of schools. Those are their wish lists. In response to the superintendent's directive, we sat down, he and I and our finance director and others, and for your benefit, discussed where each of these projects may fall with regard to funding. As you look at the spreadsheet, you have a general cost of each of the projects, and some of them are more estimated, some of them are more specific. We've gotten some contractors to specifically quote prices, so those are reflective of specific costs. Others are generally estimated because, quite frankly, it's difficult to get contractors to price something before you take it to bid, because then they've shown their cards. So it's not easy to get quotes for some of the bigger projects. But having said that, you have a column for maintenance budget that would fund certain projects. You have your ESSERS fund, which is your ESSER 3 fund, I'm assuming. You have your general fund line item, safe schools line item. We typically get 80-some thousand, I'm going to guess, in that ballpark for safe schools annually. You have your ATC grant. There's a special state grant that comes in that provides funds for the ATC service. So when you're talking about painting in that building or HVAC work or anything related to your ATC, there is another grant that we can tap into, a state grant that helps offset some of their expenditures. And then you have your capital outlay fund, which is typically the fund that you use for construction projects. That's your $100 or so per child that you get every year for construction. And we used, I'm going to ballpark it, Alicia can help me if she can, but around $450,000 a year, Alicia, we get based on our ADE for that project. So if you're looking at totals or on the bottom page or the last page, you can kind of follow those line items down, and that's typically what the principals and building directors are asking the board to consider. There's one item on here I just want to quickly bring to your attention that I would like to ask you to add in your consideration that we didn't have the numbers for to add on this particular document before it went into your transmittal, and that's for 2 servers for technology. They have 2 antiquated servers that function at different capacities throughout our district that are antiquated and ready to go. They cost a total of $23,000 to replace those 2 antiquated servers. We're asking that that be considered out of your general fund because that's typically or most logically the area that we can justify purchasing those servers. So if you can consider that as you consider this list. And we're just asking for your direction. Do you want us to address any particular items? Do you want to go through this list and kind of give us some idea of what you'd like to support or what you would like to wait on?
To me, this is one of those things that should possibly be moved over to the work session, that we can kind of sit
There's
down
a
and
lot
discuss.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Because I do have a question, like, if you add column 1 up, you have $3,201,688. If I add up how they're gonna come out, it only adds up to $1,145,888.
Well, there are some items that we didn't include in any of the budget items because we felt that those could kind of wait for a later presentation, like playground equipment. If you'll kind of go down here, there's the things I have not highlighted.
That's gonna add up to the 1 million.
That's correct. The ones that are not highlighted, we haven't put figures over to the right on because we thought that would be pretty excessive at this time. But of course, Mrs. Constantine, you can add anything that you would like to add or propose anything you would like to propose. I do have 3 schools asking for playground equipment. They do have pretty antiquated playground equipment. Baker, for example, we've took old equipment from Trapp and Pilot View. When we sold those buildings, we went and robbed the playground and moved them over to Baker. And Strode's pretty antiquated, and Shear's pretty antiquated. I got a call today from Justice. They have a kindergarten playground that they claim is insufficient size for them. So, at some point, I think the board's going to really have to look at playground equipment. I don't know if that would be something that would be appropriate as your Eckert's funds or appropriation. It is spacing kids out. I think there's an argument that might be able to be made with using ESSER's funds for that. You can certainly use capital outlay funds for that, but if you're going to exhaust that this year with what's being proposed to you, then you won't have a whole lot to deal with. And playgrounds are expensive. That equipment is very expensive. So, just asking for your direction on this. I will mention that there is a sort of a time crunch here. We have to put a lot of this stuff out to bid. There's only a small window of time that we can do work. This year is different because we're doing a 3-week summer program, so that takes 3 weeks out of our schedule at every school. So that takes 3 weeks out of our schedule to do painting and tile work and things of that nature. So that really limits us into the month of July. So some of these vendors have projects already scheduled out, and we've got to nail them down quick in order to get them in July. If we wait too long, then we won't be doing a lot. But that's up to you. We're just here for your direction.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but was there like 26 million in ESSER funds allocated to Cook County? For 26 million? And how much have we used of that?
Received it, there should have been a summary in
I think it's in the superintendent's update, there's a summary of what was in.
There's a summary of all of the.
And
Oh, that's right.
measure 1, 2, and 3, and years.
And when we considered a lot of this budgeting, I think the thing that we all agreed on is we did our best to protect general fund dollars. And, you know, the things that are in general fund have to be in general fund. We really did our best to look at other funds and what might be appropriate for some of these items with the intention of protecting your general fund as much as we possibly could.
I understand that. I would just like, if somebody's wanting playground equipment, I'd like to go out and look at their playground equipment before I vote to replace this one's playground equipment and not
Right.
this one's.
I understand, but right now, we don't, just to be clear, we don't have any playground equipment on this list.
Right.
It's on here, but we haven't added it into the figures that you're seeing in
Yeah.
these columns.
I mean, I was just using.
But they,
Calm down.
but those requests have been made, and I'd love to see
Is there a
playground
lawnmower
equipment.
on here? Can you look?
I don't know.
Well, some of these, you know, like you didn't include, they're not in bold. It'd be nice to know if they could be used for ESSER, if it could come out in ESSER or not.
Okay.
So that I think I think a workshop, this would be good for a workshop as well.
I think it's a great idea. I'd be very excited to get into a work session with you and talk about these items.
Because I want to kind of dig in on where we're at. And I know there's a time frame, is it June or September of next year that ESSER funds have to be.
Oh, you have a
Well,
3 year, it's 3
Huh?
years.
3 years, okay.
That's also detailed on this.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'm looking at,
I pulled it up, but,
The one that's due next year.
oh, I see.
if you can replace the gym tile floor with wood for $150,000.
The what? Floor and strode, that's not a real practical
I was
request.
thinking-
Yeah, that's not I mean,
There's no way.
no way, no. And I've spoken with the principal and staff there. I mean, that's just not practical because of the elevation of the floor. With wood, you have to bring it up and it doesn't meet the thresholds of the doors. It's just not, it's not doable.
What's the deal with mulching the playground? Did
That's-
everybody lose their mulch this year? or-
No, every year we have to mulch
We do it every
playgrounds.
year.
That's just a
Because of the-
routine annual requirement.
Just,
So that's something you know you're gonna have to do basically.
That's right, and that's all, those are all under the maintenance columns. We're just trying to depict what,
Right.
you know, what we could pick up with the maintenance. And obviously, there's things that are higher priority than others, but the final comment I'll make to you is that this is what the principals and staff said they would like to have
Could-
from the board. I mean,
would
it's,
it be too much work to prioritize within each school?
if that's your
If-
direction, I
mean,
can
it would just
certainly.
help us to know, like, is library tile and carpet more important to the building than the demo shed?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm. If that's your direction, I'd be happy to take that back to the principals.
They're gonna put their clock system down low because that's important to us.
Those are on there. Those are on there.
I mean, I just think it would make, just to make it go faster for us, if they prioritize, and maybe it is prioritized, I don't know, when I look at it. Would they rather have auditorium carpet removal and paint, and they could live without the pressure wash? I mean, that's, just $1,500. But I mean, to me, I want to be able to help them get what they want.
Mhm. Well, there's a lot of items on here in a very concise period of time to do them in, and it's going to take some pretty intense coordination and a lot of phone calling and negotiation with contractors to get it done. I mean, I'm happy to have a work session with you, but time is of the essence. If we're going to do it in the summer, we need to do something pretty quickly.
Do we have an idea of a date?
That's item number 14.
Okay.
We're getting there. I mean, I think it needs to be sooner rather than
Yes.
later. We're not planning on doing 2 months from now.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. You just tell us what to do.
Well, and I think we're gonna need your guidance because you're gonna have to oversee this.
Absolutely.
We said, hey, we wanna do it all.
Mhm.
Can it get done?
Can it get done? Is that feasible?
I give it a hell of a try, that's all I can say.
Because if you prioritize, then
Yeah.
something's further down the list, we may
Yeah.
not get to it this year.
That's
But we
right.
want to get to the things that are necessary for school to function.
Well, I'll tell you, there are, and John could probably attest to this, there's a lot of contractors out there that like to see some work, especially our local contractors. And one of the things that we do is to try our best to keep work local. I mean, that's something we support wholeheartedly. I mean, if all their contingencies are equal, we go local. I mean, we want to keep our money local. And there's a lot of folks out there that need work. And so, in that regard, I don't think it would be hard finding the work or the contractors to get here. The bigger projects might be a little more challenging, but even those folks are looking for work.
Hope so. You see
If they can get the workers.
signs everywhere
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the material might be tough.
Now, the bleachers we priced specifically. I mean, the Baker's bleachers, we have to pull in and out manually. I mean, those are really bad shape. And I think those were $117,000. The Campbell bleachers, I think we're in the neighborhood of $170 if I remember correctly. But those are quotes from a vendor. Given the cost of those, I'd have to research to see if we had to bid those out or if you were interested in bleachers. But, you know, based on the argument that we have to spread kids out, I think, did the bleachers fall under the ESSER's fund?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the argument we made, that we have to spread kids out. The same thing with Campbell Auditorium. You know, the school at Campbell wanted their auditorium redone so they can put kids in there and classrooms in there and spread them out a little bit more so they're not so cramped in anticipation of us coming back full-time to school. Some of these projects are planning for that. Kids being in the building full-time at full core, and you need to really look at your environment and start making it more conducive to receive these kids in August.
What's the field house at Campbell? I mean, has it been touched in years?
No, it's not in terrible, I wouldn't classify it as terrible shape, but it's definitely in need of renovation. I mean, all of your fixtures in there, your toilets, your sinks, your lighting, your HVAC.
The toilets don't even work in there, do they?
It depends on what day, you know.
They was
So-
using that as, at one time, maybe
Yeah,
a few years ago.
the sewer system there is horrible as far as drainage. We're flushing that line out all the time.
They're using it as a uniform closet.
Yeah, the showers, they don't use the showers. Well, they don't have hot water in there anymore because the boiler's gone in that facility. But yeah, they'd love to see that facility fixed up for their middle school program. They're, you know, we have seen a huge shift of interest in that facility based on you know, all of those facilities reverting down to middle school. You know, they want to see they're taking pride in their baseball field, their softball, all this stuff. They're showing a lot of interest, and we're trying our best to work with them to bring it back up to par.
Structurally, is that building still good?
Oh yeah, it's all brick. And structurally, it's fine, but
We had a new ceiling, new roof, and we had a water leak here several years when we replaced all the ceiling. One big thing.
but you have window air conditioners. There's a weight room in there. Kids working out with weights with window. You know, it's in definite need for renovation.
So you're saying that the bleachers and the auditorium seat replacement, those could be possibly a hazard? Possibly?
As far as ESSER's monies?
Yes.
Yes, I think that they could be.
So is that something like you need to get a bid out sooner rather than later to see?
The seating capacity is getting larger, the spaces together, getting closer together. It's not on pretty quick. You're gonna see this go back to normal. Yes, we won't probably recover.
And like, I would be fine with you going on and putting that out there and getting a feel to see what prices are on it right
Right now,
now.
it's 3 feet. They go back to regular and they don't put a spacing on there. I don't know how you want.
Yeah, it's just time consuming.
I don't think they'll change the guidelines midstream, though. I don't think they'll change the guidelines for ESSER midstream. I think once they determine how you can use that funding. But I don't think they've restricted, they haven't come back and said, you can't use a ESSER to do these things now. I think the original guidance of how you can use it will stay for the 3 years. I think people would be upset if they did come back and say, oh, now you can't, because we're back to normal, you can't do, you know, seats. I don't think that'll happen.
I don't think that will happen.
I don't either. I think you would have an uproar. You can't tell districts they can do this and then pull back on it, but.
No, I just meant he needed to get them like before.
Right,
Go
a
on
certain
and let
time.
them
I get
start
what
the
you're saying, I
bids.
think that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Well-
That way, we would have them at the work session, we would know more.
How much
costs.
exactly
Yeah.
it's gonna be.
Well, some of these bigger projects, you have not only the challenge of finding a contractor
Then
legally,
installation.
but then those contractors have to order the equipment, and the lead time on some of this equipment can be excessive because the factories are behind. You know, we could order seats for the auditorium and not get them until Christmas, or we could get them in, it depends on the availability and if people are manufacturing them or not. I mean, that's a challenge out there right now, is getting the material and the lead time on the material.
I think that's something we would need to know, is when we're gonna get it, what's gonna, I mean, for that meeting. I mean, we would kinda need to bring that back to us.
I think a work session is a great idea. And just to throw in there, if we could also talk about preschool location at that time, the architects are really needing a decision soon about where that facility is planned to be located, because that's critical in their design documents.
Okay. So what do you need to get, can you put out to find out exactly when you could get these bleachers and stuff like that?
I can, but it's a little sensitive. If they're on the state vendors list, I could talk with the vendors and say, when can you get it? If it's not, I gotta bid it, so I don't know who I'm working with to get who they're ordering from. So, and to answer your question, I think I can say yes, but not in every case.
It may be available now, not available in 2 weeks too.
Right.
Depending on who you're ordering, what vendor, what contractor you're using, what source they use to get their materials, and all of that makes a difference.
I mean, if you put it out to bid, we don't have to take any of it.
That's correct, that's an excellent point.
So we could always put, okay, put out the bid and then see what happens.
But it's a lot of the stuff, I look at those was on the state bid list, and I could be able to work with them immediately.
What would make it, what do you think we need to
Given the recommendations from your finance director, your superintendent, and your director of operations, I think you need to go with what's being proposed to you because you can afford it. And you'll be knocking out a lot of this stuff that has a direct impact to instruction. And you won't have to use your general fund next year to do a lot of this stuff, in which you may have when you don't have the available extra funds you have now to do this with. That's my recommendation.
And that wasn't exactly what I was asking.
Sounded like a good answer though.
I'll give you
Good
kudos.
pitch. It was a good pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a really good pitch.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
But I meant as far as the bidding. As far as getting you prices on your bleachers and stuff.
What was your question again? I mean,
What do you think we should do, go on and put it out to bid? Let's give you
Um,
the direction to put that out to bid?
well, if you did that, you'd have to tell me which items to
Which
work with.
items, I mean,
All right, and then I'd be happy to contact the vendors.
Yeah, I mean, I would be, if we're gonna go into a work session, I would like to know, A, when you can get it to us, and B, how much it really is gonna be.
For what projects? The Campbell Auditorium or bleachers or?
Yeah, I mean, you're high, I don't want you to go down this whole list and something that's $1,000, you go see,
Right.
tell me how much it is.
Right.
But something that's 150,000 or something that's, whatever, then yeah, I would kind of, if we're thinking about doing
Yeah, I
it.
thought you said earlier that you already got prices for the auditorium and bleachers.
I got prices for the bleachers from a state vendor, so that would be good. And we could take that if we wanted it, but I still would want to see, some other companies like Toadvine or somebody and see what they had to offer to see if this price is reasonable or not. But with the auditorium, I have not spoken to specific vendors. I've spoken to people who do floor work and stuff, but
That's my question, you just answered it.
yeah, okay,
That's
good.
what you need to do.
That's what I can do. I'd be happy to do that before the work session to give you that information if that's what you're asking
I mean,
for us
that's
to
my
do.
personal opinion, I don't know everybody else's kind of. I agree. Just to kind of get
I think we're
around.
gonna, I mean, do you have enough time, like if we have a work session next week, for me to get all this?
I'll do my best. The clock systems, you want to go forth with those? I mean, that company's on the state vendor list.
I would, yes, say I would go on and give you direction, go ahead and start the clocks today. But That's just me, I don't know how Brenda feels over there.
no, I'm about the clock.
Yeah, Brenda's about the clocks too, so you'd have to get another board member to agree to the clocks.
I agree to the clocks.
So see, there you go.
Are we gonna take it line by line then?
No, that's the whole point of not doing it
Yeah.
tonight, I
Right.
think,
I got
is
you.
to,
Let's do a work session. I'm happy to do a work session.
All right, so
Yeah.
that's 14.6, but if you can get us prices on bleachers and stuff like that,
I'll do the preliminary
but
work
for
and prepare.
availability.
yes. those
I'll
kind
do
of-
my best to do that as well.
Alright. So, okay, so we're gonna table basically number 11. So now we are on item number 12. Review, discussion, and selection of a facilitator for the superintendent search. So you all have heard before presenters, and I'm not sure kind of where you all want to go with this, but yeah, I see where you're going there. I'm gonna call a couple, 5-minute recess real quick. Good over there?
That was a big thing.
We're back in session again. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, item number 12, review, discussion, and selection of a facilitator for superintendent search. Yeah, would anybody like to start that discussion?
Well, I think we heard from Cognia, they're not in it for superintendent search.
No.
So it's really
It's a
between our virtual presentation, I can't remember his name.
Jacobs,
McPherson.
Yeah.
Jacobs and
McPherson.
McPherson, Jacobs.
KSBA and KASA.
Mhm.
I think we're down to 3, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I personally, I mean, McPherson's is gracious enough to join. I just don't know if they don't have any searches, have done any searches in Kentucky, and know some of the regulations that might maybe need, so.
Can we
I'm out
eliminate
on
They
them?
reached out.
I could eliminate them.
I can eliminate them.
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear we're down to two.
Okay.
Yeah. What y'all's thoughts on the two?
Well, I thought it was important that KASA we would be their only search at the time. And I know KSBA mentioned that he doesn't have another search, but it was likely if one came along, he would take it in conjunction with. And then having 6 at one time, I was uncomfortable with.
He had 6.
He said he had 6 at
He
one
bitched,
time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think he was uncomfortable with that too, you know, so,
Yeah.
you know, he joked with that, but
So how close was he being finished with?
he doesn't have any right
We
now.
Oh,
just
he doesn't
asked
have
him,
any.
like,
Yeah.
how many he typically used and, or performed at one time, and he said, done one, and he's handled as
Because
many
they
as
do
6 at one
a
time.
lot.
Yes. I was a little uncomfortable with that many going on at one time. Not that he would, but if they came along,
There's always the
he would
potential
take,
there.
yeah. I feel like,
Well, my biggest concern with KSA is their sole purpose is for superintendents administrators. And if they do this, I mean, I don't want to say they do this on the side, obviously. They do this as an offering, which is great. I just think there should be a line of distinction when it comes of a group that is supporting administrators. Their sole purpose is to support administrators, and KSBA's sole purpose is to support school boards. I don't like the fact, I'm not with you, I don't like the fact, that he could do multiple ones. That's the only drawback I have with KSBA, but I do think they do, I think there's a line of distinction between school board support and administrator support, and I just like that line of distinction.
I like too with KASA that she had been in every role within the school system.
She seemed more apt to me to expedite the process than he did. She seemed to be like willing to do a quicker search and had the confidence in herself that she could do that. Whereas I felt like he was like, you are going to be around. And we may decide to go that route, but I feel like whichever route we decide to go, she seemed to be pretty prepared to tackle either one.
Well, I felt like KSBA was prepared too to go either way. They had, he already had people or recommendations to provide to us for interim superintendents as well. And I think she mentioned she did too. To me, I just like the line of distinction, and I think it's important. I know and I don't know who all they have up there in KSA, but as far as would we work with her, I know she said we would be her point of contact, or she would be our point of contact. I just don't. I like that part of it, but at the same time, I just like that line of distinction. So I'll go with what you think.
I wasn't terribly impressed with KSBA's gentleman. And then and he had our undivided attention, because it was a special call meeting. I think it's much harder to come in with a room full of people and real quick share your information. I wonder what her presentation would have been like had it been at this, last Monday night. I think tonight we were kind of rushed, you know what I'm saying? And with him, we were able to have a more intimate conversation, but I felt like he was almost too comfortable with us. If that, did you sense that?
I can see I can see why you say that, yeah.
Yeah. I want them to really work hard for us, and
Well, I've sat on 2 committees with KSBA, and that's all I can base it on.
Right.
And they've done a great job both times. I mean, they came in and they really ran with it.
and that was the facility,
The
and
facility
then the
and
first search was
the first
KSBA.
search, yes, it was not the guy that presented it at that time on,
Right,
he was the facility, but he was not the superintendent search, he was not the one that did the last time. I think he replaced the guy that did it, he's since retired.
He said Mike Goder did it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they've done great both and been very knowledgeable as far as sitting in with them and them being able to instruct us on what to do and meeting with us as committees. And kind of taking charge in those meetings and leading us through. So, I mean, that's, I can tell you all firsthand from those experiences. I've never worked with KASA, I don't know, I can't say whether they would or wouldn't, I don't know. You can just go by experience. The other thing, I don't know if that extra week and watching the meeting from last week gave KASA a leg up.
Yeah.
I can't say that it did or it didn't.
Seems like there's more options with KSA, so it makes me wonder if we're going to keep getting, that KSBA one price, this is price, from start to finish. And then if we want to do certain things, I don't know if there's additional add-ons or just all the options that they presented. Like I'm looking at the platinum on-site.
Right.
I mean, so if you just look at that, it's pretty comparable to KSBA. It's not, it's comparable.
Yeah, prices were right in line, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it was one that was more than, other than our virtual gentleman.
I mean, do you all have any thoughts on line of distinction at all, or are you all comfortable with KSA?
That didn't really bother me. Personally, I mean, I'm just speaking for me, but I felt like with her being a superintendent before, that she would know, what to look for. She could help steer us in the right direction. She could help us with the questions. I thought that was a
Questions,
good tool.
because your committee will come up with your questions.
Well, then we get another time with them, right?
You'll interview the top candidates that
Right.
the committee send you, and then if you're not happy, then you send, like, if we look at the applicants and we're like, we send them back to the committee. You will only get your top 3 that you, or ever how many we decide to top, whatever.
Right.
That's what you will, and then you come up with basically your own questions, what you're looking for, or as a board, or whatever. But she's only going, or him, she, he, whoever.
That person.
Yes.
Would
will
work with
only
the
guide The committee.
Right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
So they're gonna, all they're gonna do is like take the situation off of, the next couple of things, like they would be handling that, they would take that over and go with that. And when I went through it before, they come in with big old
Chart paper, I'm sure.
yes, and they're writing names down, and then your screening committee will start doing
I do
reference checks
want
on
to say
everybody, and then they're writing everything
yes.
down, and then
I do.
all on this paper.
Mhm.
And then
I do
it flips
like the
back,
one
and then they
search
go back to
for
that, so it's a
at a
constant
time,
moving
no
thing.
matter.
So either one you go with, it's going to be moving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the moving piece. And I think we met once and sometimes twice a week. They divide up, ever how many people you have apply, they will divide those up and people will start looking through applications immediately. So, like, they don't do that legwork, your screening committee will do
Right,
the
they
legwork.
do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just there to guide.
I kind of like KASA only because if they follow their word, it says one search per consultant at a time, no multiple assignments. And I do think that that's important because I think if you are being pulled with, you know, with this search committee over here, and I'm just gonna throw out like District A, and then this search committee, and he doesn't have any, but I think he's pretty confident that he's gonna have another one. Because he said, I'm waiting to hear back
Yeah.
From such and such.
from,
Yeah.
he didn't give us the name, but he says, I'm pretty sure I've got that one.
And that's, I'm just more comfortable with KSBA just because they're there to protect boards. I mean, we just went to a KSBA conference where they taught us what we're supposed to be doing during evaluation.
But she does stress that in her presentation, that they follow the rule ethically.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, I'm kind of like Bill on that too. They're there for administrators, whereas KSBA is there for your board. That's my whole holdup right there. I would rather have somebody that's there to protect the board at this point. That know what we can, what we can't do. It's nothing, I mean, I think they did a great presentation. It's nothing
It's hard
personal
to see,
for them
it's
at
hard
all.
to see.
Yeah.
It is.
It's just, you know, we go to all these conferences and have to get our hours through KSBA and do all this, and it's like, why would we not use, when we're looking for somebody to protect us?
Yeah, I mean, are we voting on the individual or the organization? Because it sounds like we like the individual, but the organization is who I'm more focused on.
Right. But then if you're not real happy
Let me
with the
see.
individual,
Well, I'm
you're kind of like
calling the
going,
organization.
Represents the organization.
yeah, they
Yeah.
represent the organization. I will tell you, I've been part of the superintendent search before as a candidate. And Owens Saylor did I thought he was with KSBA, and it was a KASA search. So I was on the other side of the table.
What was your thoughts on how they handled it?
He was so professional. I mean, he kind of walked me through like the interview process and kind of what they, you know, how it was all going to be set up. And of course, I didn't get hired. So he had to make that call to tell me. And he was extremely professional. And in my mind, I thought he was KSBA, but he wasn't. He was KASA. So, I mean, for me, I did have firsthand experience. Now, I wasn't on the board side to know if they were happy, and I couldn't really
And see, that's
reach
what-
out to find out if they liked that service. You know, I know from a candidate, I was
But you were
impressed.
an administrator. You were,
Well, yeah, but we're gonna hire an administrator.
yeah, but you were getting, he
We're
was
not hiring
telling
a
you
board
how to
member.
do the application process and what to expect, and,
Right, but that's what we're hiring. We're not hiring a board member.
but we still need somebody to
You
protect,
see what I'm saying?
to
We're
lead the
hiring.
board in the process
I
of
will
hiring.
tell you,
Yeah.
my hometown, they just did a superintendent search and they used KSBA, and it wasn't a gleaming review.
It wasn't or was?
Wasn't. They didn't do anything to sell. Their experience didn't really do anything to sell me, I will put it that way.
You know, I don't know, I haven't been part of a KSBA search. So I don't know that side of it. But in my mind, yes, KSBA represents us and they train us. And the superintendent is part of that. But your superintendents are also 85–90% of the time, a member of KASA as well. Because they're gonna want that professional side to be a leader, whereas KSBA is preparing them to work with boards. But KASA is giving them that leadership, training, and, you know, because they are in charge of the capstone project, and they do have to do that year-long. It's not KSBA that does that, it's KASA.
So are they just grooming superintendent assistants to be superintendents within Kentucky? Or, you know, are they going to search more regionally and nationally that the superintendents are not part of KASA? So if we're just looking at bringing in a, you know, which might be and I just don't want to preclude, you know, other superintendents or even, you know, other candidates out there in other areas besides Kentucky.
Right, you mean from like another state or?
Yeah, from another
I
state.
think either organization is gonna put it out there.
That was the impression I got.
I think
Is that-
KSBA and KASA is gonna go, if there's an interest, I think they would look at outside. I will tell you, I don't think it's always in a board's best interest to hire outside of the state of Kentucky.
Oh, I'm not saying that either. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if, you know, maybe
We
there-
have too many, I mean, moving parts in our education that is not normal, like SBDM councils don't exist in other states, and it's really hard for superintendents to wrap their heads around that, coming from another state.
So, okay, so when administrators are members of KASA, right? So what if one of them apply? Is that a conflict?
No,
It wouldn't be a conflict of interest.
no. Because,
what if one applies that's employed by KASA?
well, I don't think they would apply if we were, you know.
I mean, I just didn't know if that's what they're members of, and then one of them comes in here and applies, and you get two candidates that are members of KSA and one that's not, and then one that's not called Outlay.
I don't think so, because I
I
think
mean, I guess that's a Brian question.
KASA is not required for you to be a member. I think you become a member of KASA because you want to grow as an administrator. You know, I was a member as a principal and as chief academic officer because I felt like that's the training that I needed to attend. You know, I needed to go and be with other school administrators. And of course, superintendents are part of that, but superintendents are also part of KSBA because they want to develop that board interaction. So they're, you know, they're kind of in between. They're going to need both of those organizations in their role. Whereas I think you're thinking of principals, and principals aren't going to be a member of KSBA because they're not a superintendent.
But they could be a member of CASA.
But they could be, exactly.
So
That was my question.
I don't think it would be a conflict unless you have three candidates, and you have one of the candidates is a member of CASA or CASA.
Right.
And they are recommended by the CASA group that says, hey, you know, there's three candidates. We have one that's a member of CASA. We think that this person's really good. And if they try to recommend it, that would be the only way that I think that it will be any conflict.
Right.
Other than that, now, you know, with KSBA, there's not going to be, because nobody.
Right, 'cause they're not gonna
You
be-
can't be an administrator and a member of KSBA. You'd have to be.
But you could be a current sitting superintendent
Superintendent.
and a member of
And so for
KSBA.
KSBA, that would be, so if you had.
So
somebody-
that's the same, it's really the same thing. You
That's
could be a member of both organizations. That's kind of not even a point, I don't think. Because if I am a superintendent of a very small independent district, I'm probably going to be a member of KSBA.
Right.
And I might be interested in Clark County because, I mean, think about it. I mean, we can't limit ourselves based on, are they a member of this organization or not? I mean, that's not the point. What we want to figure out is who's going to work the hardest for us. I mean, that's what's important to me. Who's gonna, you know, be involved and, I don't know. I think we're getting down in the weeds. Personally. Because honestly, I'm a member of both. I'm not a member of CASA right now, but I have been, and I'm a member of KSBA. So,
And two, it's not like we're their first search. You know, I mean, it's not like we're their first search they've done several searches, they've been doing them for a while, so I'm sure that this question has probably came up, and it's probably not been an issue, or she would have disclosed a scenario of that nature to us, I would assume.
Sounds like we just need to call them over. I mean, it sounds like the
but
decision
what
we made
even,
there.
what
so-
even,
So if anybody wants to make a motion, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to select KASA as the facilitator for the superintendent search.
Motion by Ms. Richardson,
I will second that.
second by Ms. Hendricks. All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstain. So I'll go with Jordan.
So motion, or opposed, no. So motion carries 4-1. All right, item number 13, we'll need to, I guess, go over to CASA now, and they will take that over. So I don't think there's really anything to go with the screening process at this point.
I think you have to appoint a board member.
That's number 14.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, item number 14 and 14A all go together. Yes, item number 14 is appointment of board member to the
So what was
superintendent.
item number 13?
The superintendent screening process, it just kind of carried over from the last board meeting with the, with 12 and 13.
Okay.
Because then they kind of, at that point, we didn't know who was gonna be here, who was presenting.
Oh,
Because then they
okay.
kind of take over if you would have elected one last week.
Gotcha.
So they would have taken over and did your screening committee and did all that then. So it just kind of carried over to this one. So KASA will now take over from here on out. I think.
Okay.
So there's really nothing we need to do.
Will they be, I guess, notified or after the meeting, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who does that?
Well, I guess I would, because, or Arlene will, one of us will. Want me to do it? Guess that'll be me? Okay. Arlene said that's a negative.
would be you, I'm good.
Yeah, I can do that. Well, it'll be me and you, because you gotta do, they'll send the contract over, and you'll have to look over that.
Do we not
Should
have
we-
a contract with them yet?
I would say those have a live meeting, we probably already know this.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say you're probably right. So, yeah, because they didn't send the contract, did they?
And we didn't decide on really what package we wanted, or?
No.
Yeah, I think that's.
Well, I guess that could be 13. Superintendent screening process, I guess there needs to be a package decided on.
I would think we would go with platinum.
That's good. That was that's kind of what I was thinking, platinum.
I mean, I went on-site meetings with the board, on-site meetings with the screening committee. I'd like a survey, and I really should have asked them questions about that survey tonight.
When we schedule our working meeting, do we need to ask her to come in, maybe and talk? Or is that too much stuff?
She'll take over, she's got to start with the screening committee. She's got to, we become her next level down here.
Right.
There's not maybe for
There's options that have to decide too, if you want to do the options or.
I mean,
you
do
can
we
that
think we
tonight or
need
not.
an on-site finalist showcase?
We did one with.
Did we do?
KSBA includes theirs. I
Yeah,
think.
there's two of our finalists from here tonight. That was one.
Oh, okay, I got you. mentioning adding, I don't know about the desired qualities questions.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
I would say any one of these two options could be added at any time,
I would think so too.
you know, I mean.
I guess you want them to provide that, there's a desired quality survey that they do, I think.
But do
that
we
question is,
pick out the
do
questions?
you make the questions, or do you want them to
To-
create the desired quality questions for $250?
Okay.
No, I'm going to that.
Okay.
You'll do his.
Okay.
I need to make sure he's okay.
Okay.
I think you're right. I think we could have a
Yeah.
discussion later about that.
Yeah, and she can come in, maybe even give a more of a in-depth what those means.
I think
To the working session, you think?
Yeah, or, I mean, she's gonna come, they'll be coming
Working,
back
yes.
to meetings and working sessions, and she can provide more information on what desired quality questions mean. You know, what does that mean? I don't know exactly what that means, or what that entails.
Yeah.
Because desired quality survey is included, so.
But I think Brian is right. I think you're right on that. We can use their survey questions, or for $250, we can develop our own, and they'll help guide us.
Yeah, yeah.
I personally think platinum. I mean, I don't see a lot of difference.
What was KSBA? They were just
Six.
They were
weren't
six
they?
That
flat.
was
They were
6,000
six flat.
flat fee.
Well, like I said, as far as price goes, they were.
It's pretty
They were
comparable.
covering,
Pretty comparable.
yeah.
I think so.
The platinum is $57.50 and a couple of options available there, so.
If you did the showcase, you're at $58.50.
Huh?
$58.50 is what, if you do the showcase, which
Yes.
they did on the last two,
Right.
Well, it'd be $67.50.
or $67.50,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Come on, bro.
I don't do math.
I do, the reason I say platinum is because I kind of want them to lead the formation of the screening committee. I think that is very important. And take it from the locally, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I agree. I agree, yeah. And I think that's more comparable to,
What KSBA would do.
Yeah.
so, she had to step out, so
Do we need to make a motion on the,
I think we probably do, and that was actually part of 13.
okay. You want to wait till she gets back? Is that what
She
you're
said we
saying?
could go ahead,
Okay.
unless you want to leave.
No, let's move on.
Let's just.
Okay.
I make a motion that for the superintendent screening process, I'm trying to stick to the agenda item, that we go with the platinum on-site package with KASA. Can you hear me, Arlene?
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Richardson, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
Yeah, I was abstaining.
Abstaining, so it'll be 5-0.
Yeah.
Okay, back to you.
So we're on item number 14. All right. The appointment of board members to the superintendent screening committee. I only had one that actually reached out and asked to be put on the screening committee, and so that made it easy. That was Mr. Tolby. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you have that one. So Mr. Tolby will be representing the board.
Mr. Polly, do you mind if we share something with you?
Sure.
You come up there, so. So on, I'm sorry?
Is it regarding item 14?
On May the 1st, the application for a waiver was due for distance learning purposes.
Wait, I think you're on the wrong one. We're doing the screening committee.
I She just said 14. Never mind.
I was like,
whoa, here we go. Christie, what you doing to me?
I was like, what? May 1st?
Never mind. Thanks, Alicia. She said come get you on 14, so
That's what I was told, so I said. Okay, so then 14A, the rest of the screening committee results. Principal, congratulations, Miss Kara Davies. Board of Education member Bill Tawby, parent Shonda Johnston, parent of a Shear student. Certified teachers, Mr. Brian Boudre, GRC. Carrie Galloway, Concrete. Classified Melanie Henry from central office. So that is your screening committee.
We're missing, a minority member.
Yes.
So that will be KASA's
KSA.
new
They'll have to find it.
responsibility. Yes.
Good deal.
All right. Now on 14B, work session meeting discussion. Stay there, Christie. I promise you're almost there.
I don't know, I just do what I'm told.
Okay. Does anybody have a certain date, time?
It needs to be as soon as possible.
How about Monday before the budget meeting?
What time is that? Like, how long? No. I think when you try to back up a work session with a meeting, it doesn't.
Give you enough time?
Yeah. I mean, that's just me.
We're gonna be talking
We
about a
don't
lot of stuff too.
technically do things very quick here. I'm just gonna say it.
What about next Tuesday?
I cannot do next Tuesday.
That's also the public meeting for the planning and zoning next week, so.
Oh, okay. 27? Thursday? Yeah.
I can't do the 27th.
Well, none of us can do the 28th.
No, that's graduation.
I can't do anything that week.
What about this week?
I can't do anything the rest of this week, no. I'm booked solid this week.
Is a Saturday morning out of question?
I'm just Saturday morning.
Daggers!
First of all, I was gonna, oh, wait, I do have a ball game Saturday morning. Do Saturday afternoon.
But you're
I can
asking,
say.
yeah, but it's not just us. We're gonna be asking other.
Oh, you are gonna be
employees.
asking.
Right,
Oh,
employees.
yeah.
Yeah, now Donald, shoots and daggers, come on, buddy, help me out here.
Saturday night at Woody's, I mean.
Saturday can go quicker, doesn't it?
I mean, I'm in favor of that, but we're asking.
I
be
can't
asking
do an
all people.
Yeah,
afternoon,
you're
I
right.
can't do Saturday afternoon.
Well, I don't think it's fair to ask
Okay.
Donald to come in on weekend.
What about the 2nd, Wednesday the 2nd? Did anybody do that? I have that open.
I'll make it work. But I mean, that's
I'll
a
make it
long
work.
time
That's
for
a
you
long
to
time for
wait.
what you're-
I mean, it is what it is, and, we'll make it work some way.
I mean, that's all we can do, because there's nobody.
What could you do the last week in April that's not the 27th?
Not April, let's try to stay in May.
Oh, sorry. What could you do the last week, or what could you do next week that's not the 27th or the 28th?
Nothing.
Okay.
Because the.
Did somebody say they could do the 26th? Did somebody throw that out there?
I can't do the 26th.
Okay.
The 25th.
Can we just want to go do?
Don't think so, I'm checking. Let me see.
Ashley, what's your next available
Yeah.
Closest
She
date.
said June 2nd.
Yeah, the second.
That's also the last day for teachers on the second, so.
Is June 1st out?
Yes. For me. Oh, wait, I may be able to do the 25th. Hold on. If I can get this line from there.
Because of that, I'm just
Well, I
trying
mean,
to.
if you got, but you got a hearing next Tuesday night. Planning and zoning.
I don't think it matters.
Well, it depends on whether, if they're gonna, I don't know what they're gonna be discussing with respect to, are we gonna be?
It's
are
a
we
work
gonna budget, or
session.
we just do it? I know what all items are gonna be on the work session.
That's what I was
Well,
going
the
to say.
virtual
Can we
probably get
recap
more
what's going on the work
now.
session? real quick?
Because, yeah, but see, they got a public hearing for the solars next Tuesday.
So,
there are
and
probably
Christie
300 or
would need
400
to be
people
here.
gonna be there.
If we're gonna discuss the virtual.
We were going to discuss
Yeah.
Well,
the
so far, we've got the list gone, but I'm
summer
assuming-
projects and virtual
Preschool site.
and
Preschool
Still
side.
side.
preschool site.
That's what's on there so far.
And there
yeah.
may be something,
And you said
I'm gonna probably request something
Well,
on the
they,
consent
we
item
got that,
before
yeah,
long.
Brenda, calm down.
Don't let that hold you up because, you know, students and academics, you know, we're together on this, so if I'm not here, I'm not speaking for you, but
Craig's like,
Not that you
"Man."
never did. I'm fine.
don't let that hold you up as well.
I mean, I just don't want to stop the process, you know, I mean, trust me, time is of essence with summer projects.
Good, is that gonna give you enough time, Dawn, to get your stuff?
We'll maybe do, we'll do it
Which is better, the 25th or the 2nd?
25th,
25th.
sooner the better.
Hey, I'm gonna be as short and sweet as I can on the 24th. I mean, like, we're already here on the 24th, right?
Could we do it after?
Trying to stop on the 24th.
Should we do it after?
I mean,
Yeah, that might
there's
be
like
good.
the
A lot of sense.
budget, which is pretty straightforward at this point, and then
Let's do it after.
a couple
So
other
now we're
small
back to
things.
Monday,
I
doing
like
2
that
meetings
idea.
Monday.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Good idea.
What was that?
It's Monday, but we'll do the budget meeting. I don't think none of us can get here in time and have good conversations and then go into a budget, but I think we can do it after the budget.
I mean, I'm planning on an hour max, folks.
Okay.
My meeting, part of the budget.
Is that the only thing on the agenda for that?
Yes.
As far as
It's the fourth
Oh.
Monday budget.
I
working
guess somebody
budget.
needs to go get Paul. Because he's
Yeah,
still,
but it's, I think on our calendar, it's the fourth Monday, so it's the budget, so it's strictly just for the budget.
Oh, yeah.
We do?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Alicia's just got like a few things, and I think Justin has one thing.
Which kind of wrapped into the budget, is what
Yeah.
sorry.
Keeps getting better.
What all's on the budget meeting? What do you have on the budget meeting for next week?
We got the tentative budget, the kids offer, third offer for kids.
There's a, which is just a yay or nay, that's quick.
Gotta go quick.
Capital funds request, which I refer to in the district update, because I have to have the timeline deadline. He has the timeline deadline on his phone bid, which is also part of the budget discussion, which is all together. That's it, as far as I'm concerned.
That's all you got for?
Yeah, and then you add these three things on. Are you gonna add those onto the same?
Well, yeah, but
agenda, or
that'll
make
go
it separate?
in. But I don't know that you wanna call it a work session either, because if you do a work session, you can't make any motions. So if you're gonna act on Donald's list, it's
It
gonna
needs
have
to
to be
be
a
a
special
special.
meeting.
Then added to that.
It can't just be added to the agenda.
Can we just add it to the agenda?
We can add it to the 6:30, I mean, you can just add it to
Just
the
add it
budget
to
meeting.
the, it's, yeah, but that's a regular meeting, but that's fine.
Mhm.
It can be added.
Because we need to make a decision on those things.
Right.
Yeah.
So we just add to the agenda.
So yes, now those three, Arlene. You're the best, Arlene. So no work session, just a special meeting. I mean, just the regular, whatever.
Just regular.
It's a regular meeting, just
Regular
added
meeting with
agenda
half
items.
agenda items on it.
Okay, so that's done. Christie! Run!
Okay, let's try this again.
Okay.
the last day of April, we discussed the waiver that was due to KDE on May the 1st. It was whether or not a school district was going to have any type of a distance learning. The distance learning, I don't want to get in your way, there were 3 choices that you had to choose from. There were a school, a program, or an academy. That was the only 3 choices that you had. And you had to read the descriptions and understand what you were getting into. So we read, and Mr. Christie and Mr. Holland had an admin meeting 2 Fridays ago to discuss all of these choices and what we had on the table. So for the May the 1st, we told KDE tentatively we were going to look at only 7th through 12th grade, and we were going to talk to the board about a program or an academy, because we knew the first was a school. It was an A1 school. We would be making physically a whole other building for distance learners, and we knew that was not in the budget. So we took this to the administrators on Friday, and unanimously, all of them said distance learning was not something we wanted to do for next year. And I want to go through just some of the issues that are in KDE's district assurances that we just couldn't, I guess you want to say, live with. So if you're a I'll take that back. If you're a 6th grader through 12th grade, you are going to have course level work. So you are going to have to be sitting in front of a computer just like you were if you were in person. That's, 6-ish, 8 hours a day. The teacher is going to have to be taking attendance every single one of those. If you are an elementary student to 5th grade, you're going to have attendance twice, and that can have a 3-hour span. Tell me if I'm talking too fast. If you have an absence during this particular distance learning time, you will have to have a doctor's note or a parent note. There's no participation anymore. It is true attendance. You will not be able to flip back and forth. It is a full year thing for distance learning. Only students with determined appropriate digital access and your support beyond that, so your technology at home, and it's always going to run. Technology is not going to be an excuse for, oh, I couldn't get on today, or any of those technology issues. That's number 7. For Becky in the food service world, you will not have any food from our schools. Distance learners, Becky's department fed this whole district this year. She made not only, Donald with his bus rides, we fed everybody. If you are, that's number 14, no meals will be given to these babies.
Are these requirements that KDE put out?
Yes.
And when did they put these out?
I'll see if I have a date on this. No, you're fine.
I think it was mid-March or so. I want to say about mid-March.
They were.
Not a long time to take what was put into place and fully vet when they were putting the criterias that were non-negotiables in there, because it wasn't like we recommend this, these are non-negotiables.
But if you started a virtual academy, does that change the?
No, you have 3 choices, and all of these assurances have to be played into
And
those.
where she was talking about this, she and I actually had a conversation February of 2020, before this whole pandemic hit, and this was where we were wanting to go, because we wanted to be on the cutting edge of being able to provide a non-traditional type of service for kids, because we know that they don't learn in the same manner. The problem was when they put this out and they started putting these parameters in place, it started taking the stuff that we worked on for 2020, February 2020, and started saying, that's not going to work, because you have to be, it's this specific with it. And that's, she's reading it. Those are some of the, kind of like where you were stopping going, these for real requirements. That's where it was kind of, it's a big hang up, and not just for us, but for other districts.
For the
as well.
entire, everybody.
Yep.
We thought we would be able to make our plan that suited Clark County, or suited Fayette County, or suited whomever, and then present it. This is what we're going to do. But this waiver, it does not waiver from their assurances.
And I think one of our big things too is we wanted to be able to pull the genie out of the bottle, because we felt like it was the right thing to do for Clark County. The pandemic pulled half the genie out of the bottle for us. And do we kind of put the genie back in the bottle a little bit to keep the instruction right in the face, kids face to face with teachers and that sort of thing, and say, let's take a little bit more time, not with this, and say, what can our virtual look like potentially down the road, and really meet the needs of the individual kids. That's kind of where we were at, as opposed to saying you're dictated. It's either 1, 2, or 3, or A, B, and C, and you have to follow these parameters. And that's where, not just us, there's several districts who are saying, we don't want to be part of this either. And that's kind of where our mindset was.
Number 9 says that you must have real-time or live strategies in a digital platform. What does that mean? Does that mean a classroom teacher is going to have a camera in her room? And a liability that sets you up for that, if someone were to do or say. It also says that there's two-way student-teacher visual and verbal interactions. Well, does that mean that if Christy Bush isn't home and all of you are in the classroom and I interrupt asking questions every 5 minutes, what does that do to the logistics of that classroom? So we brought all of this to the administrators on 2 Fridays ago, and unanimously they said this is just not good. We want everything best for students. We want them in person. If they have a truly medical, mentally, physically, they can always do home hospital. So that we're not taking away all of their choices.
And
Did you do that for a year? Like that mother that was here?
Yeah.
We've talked about that. We think, yes, that does fall into a parameter that we can work with, or people who are like that. And I think that we can look at it by case basis and say, let's truly meet the needs of this particular student's family, that type of thing. I think that's out there. Don't you think that that's out there to be able to look at it and do that? You with the DPP side, looking at how that is. And from a curricular side, I think 100%. That's at least a more viable and feasible way to be able to approach it, as opposed to saying, we're going to put a cap of 30, or what do you do? Do you just open it up to anybody? Do you say it's first come, first serve? Who's the choice that you make to get into the academies? There's a lot of limitations and a lot of things, because then you get the people of saying, well, they got in and we didn't, because if there's not a cap, you're talking about an open-ended number of staff members that have to be hired, and you're hiring generalists for the most part, as opposed to people who are specialists that deal with a particular curriculum. These are just the things that we had to play around with in our head within a short amount of time to go with the parameters that KDE had put on top of this with the submission of this application.
So I reached out to other DPPs to see what they were doing, just to get a few ideas. And the only ones that replied, Mercer County, they are developing a plan. Scott County's already developed their plan. It's 8th grade through 12th grade only. Washington County is 6th grade to 12, but they are voting. If you choose to go distance learning, you will not participate in sports. They have a very strict contract that they're going to have signed.
Which is basically going to be a similar one as to home hospital. Because home hospital, if you do that setting, you cannot do anything extracurricular, sports included. So
Powell County is 6 through 12 with an application and an academic requirement. Nicholas County is 4 to 12, same thing, academic contract. Science Hill not offering anything unless mandated by the state. Clinton County is limited virtual, and the example they gave, emergencies only, examples such as a cancer student. Fayette County, they are going to make specialty schools. They had 9,500 students distance learning. So the example they gave, like one middle school will be a specialty in language arts and social studies, and another one will be math and science. They're going to strategically have those teachers spread out. Let's see, that was everybody that got back with us. Some of the issues we had this year, and I'm just going to be 100% honest, parents wanting to flip-flop back and forth. Reasons as they got in trouble with truancy, non-participation. Students do get lost. I mean, we've had counselors, we've had so many wellness visits, by policemen to go, please just make sure this child is upright and they're okay and they have food, because we don't hear from them. They're getting lost. That's the only word I can think of. Of course, the no food service is the biggest one for our babies. We know how some of them go without food. The sports nightmare. Every time a big hot sporting event would come up, they always wanted to go to distance learning so they could be semi-quarantined away from any possibility of COVID. That is a nightmare. And we tried to be very, very accommodating to parents. I mean, as long as we could. There's 7 days of school left, and they're still and I don't want to be, I don't want that to sound like I'm bashing, but, you know, we're here for the students. We need to do the best we can by them. That's our main
That would
focus.
take that away, because they're gonna have to pick one way or the other, so they're flip-flopping back and forth with stuff.
Our colleagues, best for the students, unanimously said, let's get them here, let's get them in front of a teacher,
But I
and
think
have all the resources at their disposal.
That's the biggest thing too. If we did it on our own, we were going to be taking kids that had been, by and large, in a classroom with a teacher and then pulling them out with that. For this, you're going to have a group of students who will have not been sitting in front of a teacher since March 13th of 2020. That would have been their last day. Because some of them went virtual, stayed virtual, and then if they choose this virtual option again, they will have not had instruction face-to-face with a teacher. And I think that's the thing where we talked about at the admin meeting. There's no program, there's no link, there's no video. As good as they may be, that substitutes for what our teachers, with some of the best teachers in the world, put our teachers in this county up against anybody. And for what they can do face-to-face and working with kids, there's nothing that substitutes that. And that's where we wanted to say, for those kids that have been out, if this is an option, do they just take it without really thinking what some of those consequences down the road will be? And that's a big concern.
But I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, because you know my situation. I stick cash back in, vaccinations are not available. There he is. There's no virtual option for him. And I'm not saying that I've not decided to put him back in next year. He
No,
may be going back.
I'm trying to, I can answer your question, but I want to be very careful because I don't want to break
I know.
confidence.
But there's more kids than just him, just like this mother here. But I put him back in, you know, it's not worth his life either, just to sit him in front of a teacher because he has to go back.
Your particular situation, and for those particular student situations, I promise you, there's an answer for that.
I mean, if you have a doctor's note, if anybody has a doctor's note,
Answer that though.
you know, that,
But how would
that's
that?
over us. That, you know, that's that's a physician. Either it's a mental health person or it's a physical, you know, pediatrician. I mean, those are issues that a parent has with them, and if they say this is best for my child and they've gone that extra step, then we have to be accommodating in that situation.
But I could get a doctor's note, but the mother that was here earlier, how is she gonna get a doctor's note for her child? Because it's not her child, it's her husband. And that puts her in a situation.
It may be,
I mean,
it may be thinking creativity-wise, you know, what can we do on certain AP classes or, you know,
we just
universities?
invested all this money now.
So they can still use Chromebooks. They can still use them in every class on a daily basis.
And then what will happen to our teachers that are now distant learning teachers? Where do they go?
That's a subject I don't know right now.
If I should answer.
Because I mean, at one time, I thought this was like a given, we were gonna have a virtual.
Well, so did we, because we were the biggest, you know, being on the forefront and trying to figure out what we were gonna do to have it done and prepared. But once they pigeonholed us in this, so number one is the school, an A1 with a separate principal and an SBDM council. Now, do you want to use ESSER funds and build that and construct that, and then 3 years later, there's no money for it because we're out of money, and then what are we gonna do?
But if they're virtual, okay, so could like it be held Phoenix, could that be a?
Okay, well, that's an A5. So a program, a full-time program, typically an A5 classified program where the student's primary enrollment resides in an A5. So we could piggyback on Phoenix in some way, because they're already listed as an A5. We don't have to apply for another school. Now, an academy is a school within a school modeling, enabling students to be scheduled in a full-time virtual course with retaining enrollment in that school, that A1 school. But you have to remember, if you're in high school, you have to be in front of that computer with 6 teachers, whatever your classes are, and taking roll. It's not going to be like what we've had in the past.
Oh, and I think that's great, I think they should be.
But we don't know how
You're gonna work
to
I get
do
it.
that.
I know.
I mean, wouldn't you just have a camera in the classroom, you know, I mean, with that teacher?
I don't know if that's a good idea either, because that's confidential, you've got to.
Well,
I mean, what's the difference between that and, what's the difference between having that camera in the classroom and, with that student setting thing, than student setting at home? Excuse me, seeing in the classroom. How's that, how is that
Majority of the
confidential?
problems there comes from the camera being at home, that's where you have, that's problems, inappropriate things, particularly not from the school side. But the problem is we don't have the capability to broadcast every classroom live in every classroom, in every building, every school.
And number 9, I'm sorry. Yeah, number 9 says, real-time or live strategies and digital platforms for two-way students to teacher visual and verbal interaction. So if you're not going to be able to do that, and it says, live, regular, scheduled, everything you do in person must be the same for that student digitally. The same academic structure.
Even their enrichment, like their
Gifted.
music and PE and all that.
Like a high schooler has to have those credits.
You would need more teachers than what we were able to accomplish for this particular year.
Right.
Because we didn't have the parameters. Now with the parameters, we're looking at exponentially more teachers that we would need to hire and look at specialty areas as opposed to the generalist philosophy.
So it seems like maybe like a survey or whatever, to see how many would be interested, to see if we would possibly need to hire more teachers for that. I don't think you can just completely take it off the table. So, you're talking about some of our most vulnerable kids out there that may not be able to come back until we know what's going to happen.
Now, just one more thing. Do you know that we're working with the health department? I know, anybody under 12 is not in this.
Right.
But we have 404 students that have signed up right now for the 12 to 18 vaccination.
Yes.
Didn't know if you all knew that or not. When you brought it up today, we just didn't want you to think we were trying to do something on the back door and keeping it from you.
I heard anything about it. Maybe.
Are we gonna talk about it?
Yeah.
Everybody's meetings were all scattered in the DPP webinar, all over May. So you were supposed to strategically make your plan, get it ready, send it to KDE, and let them know what you were going to be doing. But it had to be one of these 3. And since our admin decided none of these 3, that's why it wasn't before you tonight. We just didn't want you to think we were trying to sneak something in on you.
Well, since school's getting ready to end again, is there a way that you can kind of get a number on some that would possibly need virtual for next year?
We can do anything that you all want.
Yeah, we just want to be
Without
transparent.
doing like we did this year, without,
We can send a survey out any way you want it. We just wanted to make sure, there was everything right up front.
Have you received very much communication, either email or phone calls, asking if you're going to have or offer the district to offer virtual?
That's a good
With-
I was just saying, I have not personally.
Have you?
Not for next year now.
because I send them to you.
Thank you.
Well, that when they call and ask,
Yeah.
I'm like, you'll have to call and ask for Christy Bush, that's her.
With Justin's help with a Google survey, we could just strictly ask if that's the route that you all want to take, just to have a number.
Be kind of interested in.
Do you want to open, let me ask you this, do you want to open it up to the entire district? Or do you want to open it up to just those people
That
who
have been
chose to
on
remain virtual and didn't come back? I think that's some
think-
guidance we would need to know too, because that is a different survey that we would ask.
I would do it.
I would
on
think,
just
what
the
were you
ones that are
gonna
virtual now.
Just the virtual.
You're talking about 25-ish% of the population,
Yeah.
K to 12
That did not come back at any time during.
this year.
Yeah, not the bouncing back and forth and all that. Because
And
those,
maybe part of that questionnaire needs to say if they have a health risk.
them
because that's-
personally or their family.
Well, I think it needs to be themselves and their family.
In your household,
Uh-huh.
within your household.
Within your household, maybe?
Because I think what it's saying is that it shouldn't be just an option anymore unless there's something at risk. No longer should it, can it be just if you want to stay home? Correct?
Because this year we have some that are, you know how it is. We need
Oh,
to see
sure.
these babies and adults have made choices that are not so
Right.
good for the kiddos.
Yeah.
So
But how
the
deep
questionnaire
can you
needs to
get
be a
your
little,
survey?
narrowed
Yeah.
and strict.
How deep can you get in that kind of a question with the survey?
think with consultation with Mr. Thomas to see if this would be something that would violate HIPAA rules and that type of thing with it is, you know, what's the most poignant question that we could ask that doesn't violate that then gives us that information, so we're not violating their rights, but it gives us the information that we need, and I think we could probably come up with some type of question. Would you feel safe about that? Yeah, we do too.
So would you like this survey and the results before your work session on Monday?
Can you get it done?
Yeah, I think
We can do
I
anything.
think we can. If we put it out, we have it out by Tuesday, by tomorrow, and then we say that we need the results tabulated by Friday, and then we can get it to you maybe over the weekend or something like that, so that then that talking point can be on Monday to have some specificity.
I'm here, Justin, we're speaking for you, you know, we're the three amigos and we're talking, you know, just for.
Justin, I've learned Justin just goes with it. He's like, okay.
So the deadline could be at 4:30, but you might get it over the weekend, like Greg said, so you won't have it.
So is there
A
any
good week in
thoughts
advance.
of keeping, I'm sorry, I'm getting there. Is there any thoughts on any sort of programs to, you know, to offer our students, not virtual 100%, but utilizing what the teachers have been through and the Google Classroom training and everything they've been through, on being able to, you know, continue to utilize that to educate, if it's at a higher learning, if it's AP courses, if it's, you know, helping kids after, you know, catch up at, you know, after school, you know, is there anything like that that we're going to continue to use, you know, our, you know, Google Classroom and everything that our teachers use to help increase the education of our students?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why that we increased the services, even when we thought we might be coming out of the pandemic, and we went ahead and purchased, tell me the name, I always call it Google Enterprise, but it's got a fancier name probably than that.
Google Workspace for Education Plus.
There we go. So that's why we went ahead and purchased that, is to give people the opportunity to do just that. So your gifted and talented students, those students in remediation, it gives a lot of flexibility. And our way of thinking too was it expands the school day from just the brick and mortar time. And where it stops it from just being a homework where they get that learning. You actually have some connections. There still can be videos that are created. And I don't want anybody to hear out there in panic or whatnot. We're still in the infancy stages of discussing that. But those are all certainly possibilities that can be done to enhance or remediate the students' instruction. That I think the services that we purchased this year won't just be done and over with. We will be able to continue on.
That's a little disheartening with all the, you know, obstacles they put in the way of offering this to the community.
If you would like to look at this, we're glad to show you the waiver piece. We
We
did
believe
not.
ya.
No, I mean, we really thought, what? You know, there's only 3.
Because we were all for, as soon as we said, well, here we go. It's game on here. We're going to be able to move forward. And we started looking through there. It was like just pop balloon, pop that balloon, pop that balloon. So we were kind of like, okay, if we don't do it this year, we do our own, does that give us some freedom for the 22-23 school year at that point in time to come back and revisit it more on our terms to be able to hit those kids who learn non-traditionally?
So next year is still funded on the 2018-19 school year. But the data that's going to be collected will have our funding for that 22 year. That's why it's very important that for the attendance purpose.
And one thing too, it's might as well be said here from a testing standpoint, if you go virtual, you don't have to test. So any child who decides that to go virtual, they are not mandated for state accountability. So that's another piece to that. So there is a separation, a clear-cut separation that's being put into place for the students who attend school versus those who go virtual. So
That was this year too.
We're making a test.
I did mine.
Thank you. So just to make sure we were all on the same page.
we do the survey, get you the results over the weekend. We'll have the meeting, and then we can talk more. Is that what I'm hearing? And then talk more about the parameters and stuff on Monday.
Yeah.
So you'll help us construct a really good legal question. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we are on the consent agenda items. Does anybody pull anything
off of 15 through 34. I want to pull item 19 off, so I can tell you that.
Okay. We'll put that on the work session. You want to put that on the work session?
Well, yes. Stipends, I would love to move the work session, well, we're not having a work session anymore, it's just moving the regular meeting. I think we need to take a look at the stipends, because looking through them today, they have gotten, that it was just a large amount of stipends that are going out. I would like a more detailed report, kind of, because I guess from what Alicia said, it was from back, at least what, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? Since we had the detail of what some of these things are and kind of who's owned.
Stipends are about the same, I mean, they're other than maybe some additional may have been added.
Yeah, there's some additional.
Very limited though, you all, those come to you to approve it.
Oh, I know. I don't know how. They've just kind of, it's happened. Yeah. And can we get a list of who's holding those stipends and exactly what their job duty is?
For instance, I release the names of those.
Yeah, I call them.
I'll get those to you tomorrow. I'll get those traffically sent to you with the
Well,
stipends.
yeah.
They are who's getting them tomorrow.
Well, I mean, like some of these are stipends that people are getting paid for committees that we're on that we don't even know who they are. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I don't think that's a secret. But anyway, so yeah, that one.
A list of who has been assigned to each stipend and what they do under that.
Yeah, it's like their job description, what that is.
That might be a job description for everyone, that's what people do. I can get you the list of who, stipends, how much the stipend is, and who's been paid for it, I can get that tomorrow. To give you a job description for every stipend, I cannot do that tomorrow.
Well, you don't have to do that, but, I mean, just by next Monday. You can do, look, Christie said she can do anything, so follow Christie's.
Notice I was sitting behind Christie when she said that.
I'm interested if there's stipends on here for programs or positions that don't even exist anymore, and we don't pay them out.
Oh, and they're just
sitting
in a line.
And if they're not active, let's get them off.
There are some of those that are people.
That's your answer,
Yeah.
why not? And they just, nobody's had it
There's
for
not a
4 years.
decade.
Last
There's not
year,
a
every
decade.
stipend got assigned. This year, every stipend has not gotten assigned just because of.
So we have a wrestling team?
That was a new one. It just started this year. You all approved for a wrestling program to start, so that's a new athletic stipend
Okay.
this year. It's never been there.
Huh? So it's already started?
Those tables are for next year. So
But we
nothing
just approved to have a wrestling team, is that what
You
you're saying?
all just approved to start a wrestling team, so that stipend got added for next.
Next year,
athletic stipend.
yeah.
It's not on this year's. If you
Okay.
look at this year's athletic stipend, there is no wrestling stipend. So no,
Yeah.
nothing has been assigned for wrestling this year.
What page are you on?
Oh, I was just looking for
But there
that.
are several that were not assigned out this year just because things did
Didn't
not
happen,
occur.
didn't occur.
Because we weren't in session.
Right, I got you on that.
That's FPLA.
And then I guess along with 19, this is just not gonna be a pleasant conversation, I'm sure. At one time, we had discussed changing pay index when, I don't even know how to word this, Brian. When people retired and stuff, because of them being up so much higher. When we were looking at it last year, you discussed it. Is that something we need to discuss now?
That's up to you all on that.
Huh?
That's up to you all on that. We let the indexes where they are. I made recommendations and it was rejected, so.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, that was one of the reasons it was rejected is because that position was filled right now.
Because that's what.
It was already filled, but it's not, it's getting ready to become open.
My recommendation was it was not going to change anybody if the position changed. It was going on getting it in place for when a position changed, and it got ate alive in me. So no, we did not change any pay indexes on any position for this year in the budget that you have for this year.
Well, I don't know if that's something y'all want to consider.
That sounds like a work session.
Yeah, but we're gonna need some guidance on that too. and-
Yeah,
and-
I mean, and it's gotta be done, because we're, I mean.
Tonight?
No,
No, I mean, we're gonna.
sooner rather than
Yeah.
later, because it's gonna mess with your budget. Because everything's gonna have to be flipped around.
Positions are gonna be filled, and you're not gonna be able to change.
Yeah.
The next change in position, too, so.
I mean,
So it's either do it like really fast or
Or not do it at all.
not worry about it right now, but you got all year to do it. Which is one way or the other. My attempt back several months was to get it done, so when these positions came open, the adjustments could be made, with somebody new coming in, they knew what the pay scale was gonna be coming into the job. It did not affect anybody in the job at this time.
It was just through attrition, right? It would,
I mean, it's up to you all, that's just a conversation that's been had in the past, that it needed to be looked at and gone through. So I don't know if that's something you all want to add, but I would like to add stipends for sure on Monday night's meeting, but you may want to look at the levels of your pay.
So you just move that whole item 19, which is.
I was gonna say, yeah.
To the
Monday.
agenda.
You got that, Arlene?
And the stipends are just.
the whole table, the night, number
Is
19.
that gonna mess you up, Alicia, or are you good? Okay, all of 19's moving to Monday.
Okay.
And that was the only thing I had. Anybody else want to pull anything off? If not, would anybody like to make a motion to approve 15 through 18 and 20 through 33?
I'll make that motion for items 15 through 18 and 20 through 33.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
A second.
second by Ms. Considine. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 34, would anybody like to make a motion to authorize payment of salaries and accounts payable?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Richardson.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Considine.
We don't have a second. We're gonna stay here all night.
I second you. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.